And we are live.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Castro Valley Unified School District Board meeting. Before we convene or move to closed session, I would like to call the meeting to order and ask if the public has any comments on any closed session items before we go to closed session. And if you do have a comment on the closed session item, please raise your hand. And if not, we will recess to closed session and return to the main open session at 5:30 p.m. Thank you, and we will recess and return. Thank you. We are going to reconvene to open session. I do not see our student board member, Shane. So.
No, sorry, he's here. I just brought him over. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Shane, welcome. Would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Shane. And as a report out from closed session, the board did not make any decisions in closed session. Item 3D, approval of the agenda. Parveen, do we have an amended agenda?
Yes, we do. Personnel has been amended.
I'll move it.
I'll approve the agenda as amended.
All right, I'll second it then.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded. Shane, your preferential vote?
Yes.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We will move on to our mission statement. Trustee Theodore.
In partnership with the community, Castro Valley Unified School District educates students in a learning environment that is safe, nurturing, and culturally responsive. Students are guided by excellent, inspired staff utilizing innovative instruction, curricula, and technology.
Thank you, Trustee Theodore. So that the public knows about public comment, I'm going to read a statement. The board respects and encourages the public to comment on matters on the board agenda and within the board's jurisdiction. The board fully supports civil discourse and requests that everyone respect each other and their point of view. Individuals who would like to address the board must raise your hand during the start of the agenda item. Now, I will state we have hands not raised when we're not taking comments for equity purposes, so we will turn them on again at the beginning of the agenda item. To comment by video conference, click the raise your hand button, and to comment by phone, raise your hand by pressing *9. To request to speak when public comment is being taken on the eligible agenda item. You will then be unmuted during your turn and allowed to make public comments. After the allotted time, you will then be re-muted. Individual speakers are asked to limit their comments to no more than 3 minutes. There are up to 30 minutes of public comment allowed on each agenda item, and with board consensus, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed. This meeting is being recorded to prepare for the official minutes. And Shane, welcome back. Student board member report. We'd love to hear what's going on with you.
We have a lot of cool things going on. This week is Spirit Week for the high school, and the leadership class has multiple activities planned for students. The Wellness Center at the high school is continuing with their Love Line, which is essentially where students can send in anonymous questions where the Wellness Center staff will answer them at the end of the week. The College and Career Center has been hosting events such as a college essay workshop for any senior interested, along with continuing to inform students on internship opportunities. Today, Canyon hosted a virtual Halloween arts and crafts event where students could come together, just hang out and participate in Halloween-themed activities. Middle school web programs have hosted virtual events for 6th graders to continue to build that connection with the school. And the week of the 9th is Rock and Roll to School Week.
Thank you, Shane. Sounds like a lot of fun. I'm glad people are able to connect. Our next presentation, item 5, is a school report and presentation from Canyon Middle School. Parveen, I'm going to hand it over to you to announce.
Yeah, thank you so much. We have Miss Wong, the wonderful principal at Canyon Middle School, presenting tonight. So here we go. Welcome. And Miss Sandra.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to the board. Thank you to the governance team for inviting us here this evening. And I just wanted to say, first off, thank you for your ongoing support and your leadership through this most unique year and always. We appreciate it. And I'm pleased to be joined by my assistant principals this evening, Zandra Teixeira and Melissa Seigers, who will be also helping present this evening, tell you a little bit about Canyon. Next slide. So I wanted to start with this Maya Angelou quote, because in the midst of this pandemic, we have had to revisit our ways of doing almost everything. And while there's been a great deal outside of our control, we've decided as a staff to really focus on the areas where we have the greatest impact and can make a positive difference. So while this has been challenging at times, it also presents a unique opportunity to reimagine what we've always done and reconsider ways in which we can be more inclusive, focused, student-centered, and family-friendly. Next slide. So to do this, we continue to rely upon our core values of community and connectedness. The power of community, and I'm going to paraphrase here, so I apologize, in the words of Dr. Noelle Amherd that was shared with us during a recent training with our Canyon staff. It's that concept that community has all of the solutions it needs to overcome any challenges or conflict, to care for its members, to heal itself and look after each other. Connectedness is the foundation of that community, and effective communication is what ties all of us in relationship with one another, as good communication fosters trust and resilience within that community. So tonight, it's our pleasure to highlight some of our efforts at Canyon as we showcase our board presentation for you. Next slide. So we'll start with our focus on community. We were very mindful of the fact that students had finished their previous school year in distance learning and that the start of this year was going to be anything but normal. Still, we focused on how we'd be able to welcome back students and families to school and do so in a way that created a sense of school community. So how did we do this? By welcoming students and families, establishing our advisory and classroom communities, and continuing to keep staff connected with one another. To talk a little bit more about this, I'm pleased to welcome Assistant Principal Zandra Teixeira.
Good evening, everyone. Amy, if you could please advance to the next slide. I'm going to start with a video from our 8th grade class president, Ian Sue, regarding the importance of community.
Hello, my name is Ian and I'm the Canyon 8th grade class president. It is important to stay connected with the Canyon community because it gives you the opportunity to feel like you're part of something that brings you joy. It enables us to develop friendships and bonds that we wouldn't be able to be a part of had we not been connected with our community. Although it is distance learning and we're not nearly as able to interact with one another as we are on campus, it is still great to stay connected and be part of our Canyon community.
Thank you, Amy. Next slide, please.
Hello, my name is Ian and I'm the Canyon.
Thank you. Although we do miss being on campus together, and our efforts in building community are really focused on that concept of finding joy, just like Ian mentioned. One of our most special annual events, our 6th grade web orientation, looked very different this year as well, but it was a priority to welcome our new 6th graders virtually to our Canyon community. Web is our program that connects groups of about 10 6th graders, or Webbies as we call them, with a team of 2 8th grade web leaders. Web stands for Where Everybody Belongs. We are fortunate that almost all of our 6th graders had the opportunity to visit Canyon last spring in early February, prior to COVID, for an on-site school tour with last year's web leaders. This year, we offered an asynchronous web orientation with a welcome video and a campus tour. The 6th graders got a sneak peek of this campus tour, and it was later shared with everyone at back to school night. The emphasis from our web program is to ensure that all students build connections with each other and their 8th grade mentors through fun, engaging activities that make middle school less intimidating and reinforces that every student is an important part of our school community. Next slide, please. This virtual campus tour was a project started late last spring and was a labor of love from our web coordinators, Mary Deisenroth and Julie Fixie, that leaned on the efforts of a number of other staff members as well. Instead of a typical in-person tour, they filmed brief, narrated introductions to important areas of campus. In addition, we are fortunate that one of our science teachers, Eric Kellner, filmed 360-degree footage of several areas of campus so students and families could get more acquainted with our school layout from the entrance to the quad to the cafeteria and more. Finally, our staff really came together by filming brief introduction videos of themselves so students would know who they were and what their role is. We were excited to share this with our 6th graders before school started and also able to share this later on with other grade levels and families as part of our virtual back to school night invitation. Next slide, please. Another important part of building community is our advisory program. In case you're wondering what that looks like, we're pleased to share this brief video with the voices of Canyon staff introducing the purpose and goals of our advisory program for students.
During our advisory time, students,
teachers, counselors,
and administrators
will work together
to practice skills and strategies
that will help direct your passion and energy in a way that is socially conscious
and responsible. These advisory lessons will provide time
and space for us to think through some of the challenges we face.
At home, in relationships, and in the real world.
So, what kind of skills and strategies will you be learning exactly?
Developing your interests and passions.
Setting and achieving your goals.
Handling changing relationships.
Managing your thoughts and emotions.
Dealing with conflicts.
And dismantling and challenging prejudice.
These are skills that everyone needs. They're also skills that anyone can learn and get better at.
Developing your social emotional skills now builds a foundation for the rest of your life.
These skills can help you succeed in middle school,
navigate your transition to high school, and direct your energies later in life so you can achieve what you want for yourself,
for your community, and for the world. Welcome to Social Emotional Learning and the Canyon Advisory Program.
Thank you, Amy. Next slide, please.
During our advisory time.
Thank you. Advisory, also known as homeroom, is an important part of the middle school experience. During the first 7 days of school, students met daily with their advisory classes to engage in getting to know you activities, learn about school-wide expectations, and also learn how social emotional learning and anti-racism education would be the focus of advisory lessons for the rest of the school year. While they don't meet daily anymore, many students and teachers reported that this was their class that built the strongest sense of community right away due to the consistency of meeting times and the opportunity to get to know each other. The advisory Google Classroom is an important conduit of information with regular updates, links, and resources for students to access asynchronously too. We believe this advisory space is a critical part of keeping students tied to their school community and also in learning about themselves, each other, and engaging in important dialogue in a supportive environment. Next slide, please. A central part of our advisory lessons this year focuses on our anti-racism efforts to educate students and ensure that all voices are heard, all students are celebrated, and everyone feels a part of our campus community. We asked students if they wanted to share their thoughts on the matter, and so we're pleased to share 2 student voices speaking on the importance of learning about racism and how we can learn more, do more, and make a change for the better. Please enjoy these videos from Ida Gurma and Jesse Dalmasio.
Hi, my name is Ida, and I want to talk about why kids need to speak up about race and racism. We are the new generation, and we need to change this. We need to stop the cycle of hate and bring peace and love. As many of you know, a lot of racially unjust things have been happening lately. If we don't speak up, if we don't make a change, then who will? Just speak your mind, because you can make a difference.
Why should kids talk about race and racism? People might say it's good to shelter your children from this, and that's just not true. You need to involve them. That way they can understand what their future is going to hold, and they can try to stop it. Stop the injustice and prejudice and make things right for other children. Thank you.
Aren't they cute?
Hi, my name is Ida, and I want to...
So now here's April to talk more about how we maintained connectedness with our staff.
Thank you. So we also want to take the opportunity to give a huge thanks to our Canyon staff, many of whom are tuning in this evening virtually at home, for their amazing work in coming together and rallying, problem solving together, and continuing to lift each other up. Every school day since the shelter in place began, we've held a space for a totally voluntary morning check-in for staff as a way to help start the school day as a team, provide clarification on information and updates that were often coming out at a rapid rate. And so this space has now evolved and changed into an important routine and a touch base for many, a way to stay connected and hear from colleagues as needed, answer each other's questions, and also provide solutions for each other in a space that's welcoming, positive, and reassuring. As the adults, it's important that we model what we want to see with our students, and what better way than in coming together in support of one another and as a team. In starting off the school year, we were all a bit nervous to begin this new adventure together. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Mary Deisenroth, this video that she filmed with an excerpt from her poem on distance learning, which really captures the Canyon spirit.
With this much trepidation, as we all start our first year, let's all pause for just a moment and remember why we're here. We do this for the outcome. We do this for the pride. We teach these kids because it makes us feel fulfilled inside. And so online, we'll do this job. We'll teach until it stings. Because if you're like me, when you do this job, your heart can't help but sing. All jests aside, we love our kids. They're what we come here for. As colleagues, we'll navigate all this and more. Go Canyon, Condors soar.
Thank you. Next slide, Amy.
With this,
so it's that sense of resilience, enthusiasm, and love that it's at the heart of the work that we do. It's what keeps us going, staying connected with one another and ensuring that our students are also feeling connected to our school and their peers. So here to share more about details on our efforts to maintain connectedness is Assistant Principal Melissa Seigers. Next slide.
Good evening, everyone. With a few words about the importance of connectedness from a student's perspective is our 7th grade class president, Ellie Wong.
Hi, I'm Ellie Wong, and I'm the Canyon 7th grade class president. Being connected is so important now. We no longer have the privilege of getting to go to campus and simply interacting with others, like eating lunch with friends and doing schoolwork with classmates. Even though learning is a bit harder now since it's online, those few video calls every week helps all of us connect with classmates, friends, and teachers, even if it's through a screen. Canyon is slowly adapting to this new normal. We all are. This school year made me notice more about the little things in life and how truly important it is for Canyon Middle School and all of us to stay connected. Thank you.
Please. So while teachers and staff have been hard at work on making instruction work virtually, we're heard loud and clear from our students and families that staying connected was a priority to them. We know that when students feel connected and supported, they are better able to learn, think critically, and overcome challenges. To that end, we were pleased to offer a range of ways for students to connect with each other, classmates they may have already known, or friends they just hadn't met yet. Students can connect through web events and activities, student activities, clubs, and community circles. Next slide, please. Our web team is hard at work to continue providing web events to engage all our sixth graders, help them during their transition to middle school, and get them connected with each other. Most recently, students participated in a web scavenger hunt, and coming up soon is the Fall Halloween Fashion Contest. Every Wednesday, 8th grade web leaders host 6th grade specific clubs on a variety of topics meant to connect students during their lunchtimes to talk everything from Legos to sports to drama, animals, and more. We're proud of these offerings and are committed to continuing to provide these opportunities for our newest condors to connect with each other. Next slide, please. Our Student Activities Director, Effie Sue and Kate Shin, have been hard at work reimagining our character education program and student-centered activities for all grade levels that translate to a virtual world. Inspired by the Mosaic Project Action Guide, each month ties into our advisory lessons with a focus on themes that support building peaceful community. In addition, student activities now focuses on ways that our kids can connect virtually, have fun, learn, and create together. Some of the recent after-school events hosted by student activities includes a watch party, as well as a trivia game. And just this afternoon, they put on an arts and crafts project. These activities are advertised during advisory and information links that are sent directly to students' advisory Google Classroom. Thank you to our student leadership class for helping to organize and make these events so successful. Next slide, please. Here are a few words from our ASB Secretary, Samantha Yee, about the importance of connectedness.
Hello, I'm Samantha Yee, the Canyon Secretary. The importance of staying connected is so that people can be social with each other and be a part of a group. I'm fortunate enough to be a part of 2 clubs where we have fun, stay social, and interact together. In these clubs, there are 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, which is great that we can come together under one common interest. I'm so thankful that Canyon offers opportunities like this, especially during these times.
Next slide, please. Clubs are an important part of staying connected. Our club offerings are based on student interest, and we are excited to host over 24 clubs at the moment for students to join, connect, and make friends. Next slide, please. Our counselors have also established community circles to provide our students with a safe place to voice their concerns, as well as to feel connected to others who are feeling the same way they are. Middle schoolers tend to think they are the only ones dealing with a particular issue, and these circles remind them that they are not alone, while also providing them with the strategies to manage their feelings during this difficult time. And next, I'll turn it back to April, who will talk more about our family outreach and support. Next slide, please.
Thank you. So student success cannot happen without the incredible partnership of our Canyon families. Some of the ways we've provided opportunities for families to ensure they're feeling connected have been through our virtual back to school night, as well as our who to contact diagram, really trying to emphasize and illustrate the staff and the support staff and the huge team that we have on site here to help. So we also continue to connect with families through our Canyon PTA, African American Alliance Network, Padres Unidos, and our Avid Family Nights to ensure that we're hearing from our parents and their needs and providing them with a space to continue to build connections with each other. Next slide. We made sure to provide our Canyon families with as many resources as possible. And we continue to work in this area as well. We want to make sure that they know who to contact regardless of whatever they need support with. We're so proud of the team that we have who are ready to answer questions, provide help, provide support as needed. And in addition, one of the silver linings we found of virtual meetings is the ability to connect more efficiently and also make use of the technology around translation services that we have available. So even after the pandemic, we hope to utilize these virtual meetings and embedded translation services to increase access and engagement with all of our families. Next slide. Finally, I just wanted to highlight our virtual back to school night, which was a great success this year, so much so many parents and teachers were hoping we incorporate the virtual option element when we return to in-person learning. In just the second week of school, Canyon was proud to be able to present our programs, provide opportunities to meet with every teacher, and learn more about what to expect from our school, and especially during this time of distance learning. So we sent a parent feedback survey, and some of the comments we received back included everything was simple and easy to navigate. I wouldn't mind doing this virtually even after COVID. We didn't have to find all the classrooms or sit in traffic. I think it was great. It was almost like being at school. Great job, teachers. So just a few highlights from our families. So time and time again, our Canyon team has risen to the challenge. Our families are understanding, flexible, and incredibly supportive. Our staff are hard at work to bring their absolute best for our students and our kids. They're insightful, adaptive, and incredibly resilient. They inspire us and they give us hope. Next slide. So as a Canyon team, we will continue to focus on building community and connectedness, as we know these are foundational to every student's success. When we see every child, when we engage every family, we know that we're committed to ensuring that all means all. And the last slide there. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time this evening. Thank you for inviting us here, and we hope you enjoyed the presentation.
I am going to go around board comments around the way that we normally sit at the table, just to make sure that I get everyone. So I'm going to, Shane, do you have any comments you'd like to share?
I just wanted to say thank you for putting that presentation together. Like, I think it really illustrates how focused you are on that connectiveness, and that's really amazing. And thank you for sharing those student voices with us, especially the ones regarding combating racial injustice. That's really great to see, so thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Dot?
Thank you for that wonderful presentation. I've really missed hearing the voices of students, and it was so nice to see those videos. I wonder, and you may have said it and I just missed it, how has parent participation been with like the Avid Parent Nights and that kind of stuff now that you're offering it virtually? Is it better than in person or the same?
So we've seen some definite benefits and increase with the ability to connect more easily virtually. So yes, we've seen increased participation. We still always would love to see more participation and engage and invite everyone. Would love to be in person to be able to have our meetings still, but we really do like the ability of including a virtual option just for the ease of connectedness and to provide as many ways to access and connect for our families moving forward. So that's the plan.
Joe?
Well, I really enjoyed your presentation, April, Xander, and Melissa, and also the students that you included. It was so nice to hear positive and resourceful responses to the pandemic. We hear so much negative, and it's great to hear. And I really think that your initial quote, April, was so incredibly accurate as you went through, because you decided that we were going to look at the positives and react to a situation in a way that's going to benefit the students that we educate. And I really appreciate that approach at looking at what you can do to enhance their learning in the way that we have to do it these days. So I thought it was very impressive. I hope that a lot of your parents and community members got a chance to hear the explanation of advisory and how important that is, particularly for middle school students' social emotional needs, and recognize that that time isn't just goof off time or whatever. It's really important, especially with the initiatives that you're working on this year. And I could see, you know, actually having planned my voyage up to Canyon for back to school night for many, many years. It's like a tactical approach. When do you get into line of the traffic and you park and you go up and you eat your dinner in your car so that you're assured to get a parking spot. So I really enjoyed your description of back to school night, and the difference it made for folks, because it was like a military planning execution to get to back to school night and time. So thank you so much for your presentation, and again for including the students.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Gary?
Yeah, that's a terrific presentation. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, one of the things that happens every year when Canyon comes to give the school report to us, it's always amazes me at how innovative Canyon is. We hear new things and new experiments every time you guys come to talk to us. And it's just, this year is no different. I mean, I think the virtual tour for your sixth graders is a terrific idea, especially with the 360 tours and so forth. And that idea about who to contact, a simple thing like that, you know, simple to us in a way, but if you don't know who to call, that's a terrible thing. You just get lost in some way. So thanks a lot. It was great. The students were wonderful. The poem was nice. I really enjoyed the whole thing. So thanks very much for another great report to the board.
Thank you, Gary. Monica?
Yeah, I'm just going to chime in with everybody else to say thank you for a great presentation. I'm very impressed at how our schools have come up with creative solutions to keep their students connected during this time. I think we're all having, it doesn't matter what your age is, issues with connectedness, and it's really inspiring the creativity that all our schools have shown in trying to keep students engaged and keep them connected with one another, even though we all can't be physically together. So thank you for that. And I'm sure all the students really appreciate the efforts that the staff puts into keeping them connected to one another.
Thank you, Monica. Parveen?
Yeah, really the two words I really wanted to use, and Mr. Howard kind of beat me to it, was this was terrific. And also that whole idea of innovation, because that when we face difficulties, that's really what helps us get through. I mean, there was just so much. It was such a beautiful presentation. I hope that much of what you've posted or you're going to post on your website, because I think it's all great. I think that what stands out to me when I listen and I watch and I've seen all the great work that's done at Canyon is you are very clear about what the priorities are. When you know something is a priority, you work on innovating ways to address it. And I think that's really the most important piece of a successful organization, that you look and say, this is important. No matter what, we're going to work around it and help that. So you've got an amazing team right here presenting, obviously, with the two vice principals, outstanding, and an awesome principal. It was so beautiful and wonderful to hear the students. We really miss them. And I love what I heard from every single one. I loved seeing the teachers. The poem was beautiful. I think, and what you're doing is you're taking care of students, staff, and families. And the idea of check-in for staff every morning, critical, because I think everybody knows everyone's working really hard. And I think sometimes in trying to take care of others, you might forget, or you may not have enough time to take care of yourself. And that self-care is critical in us being able to do that with other people. The social emotional learning and anti-bias curriculum that has been created in this district is unbelievable. And I'm always proud to share it with other people outside of the district. So thank you so much for the presentation and for all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Parveen. I just wanted to say a couple more words. I know that a lot has been said, but one common theme when you talk about community and connectedness, you're appreciative not only of being mindful of what people are going through at whatever level they're at, because in normal times it's hard enough to go through middle school, scary. But in a time of crisis, recognizing that it's not it's the kids and it's the parents and it's the teachers and it's the staff. And the mindfulness, not only just recognizing that and creating that community and that connectedness through the lens of diversity and inclusion, but just the way that you thank staff tonight, I want to thank you for your appreciation of staff, because there has been so much work done. And it really shows that you are a true community that takes into account everyone's point of view, feeling, to create that environment that leads to inclusion. So just want to thank you for doing your part to recognize others.
Thank you.
And with that, I want to thank you all for coming tonight and your wonderful presentation. We hope you're safe and well, and we wish you nothing but the best. Thank you. Now we are going to move on to item 6, the California School Employees Association and Castro Valley Teachers Association report. I'm going to look for Robin. She is here, and I am going to bring her on over. Good evening, Robin.
Good evening. Thank you is a very, 2 small words, but it does mean the world. And tonight I want to say thank you to you, our board, for making the decision, hard, easy, whatever, that gave us, as CSEA members, gave us a sense of community and inclusion when you voted and made a stand for when to revisit reopening. I have heard many positive comments from the CSEA members that they feel that they have some ground right now that is not shifting every 10 minutes. And that has been a big help. So thank you for making the decision. And it helps. It really and truly does. You may hear so much other stuff, but we wanted to be sure that we told you thank you, because you are appreciated.
Thank you, Robin. I am going to look for our CVTA president, Mark Mladinich. Mark, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Here's my presentation tonight. So our staff is continuing to work very hard to make distance learning as manageable, relevant, rigorous, and enjoyable as possible for our students. As you just saw with the Canyon presentation, everyone is doing everything they can to make this happen, top down. Many of our members are parents of K-12 students who are going through the same difficulties that our community are going through, and we understand the frustration and difficulties this pandemic has caused. We, like everyone, wish that this virus was not as ubiquitous and dangerous as it is. We want to get back to normal, but also do not want to threaten our community with illness. Our bargaining team has been working with CVUSD to bargain a safe return to in-person instruction. We have met for the past few weeks and are making some progress. We are trying to anticipate potential safety issues that our students and staff may face and are trying to get ahead of them. This takes time and patience and involves things that I never thought we would have to bargain, like access to touchless thermometers and the need for toilet seat lids. Thank you, board, for taking a cautious approach to opening. In checking with neighboring districts, they are taking similar approaches. Last night, both Alameda and San Leandro set a target date of January for a return, and other districts have done the same. So I would like to join my colleague in CSEA, Robin, in saying thank you for taking a cautious approach. We want the board to know that we will work our hardest to make distance learning as successful as possible, And when we do return, we want our families and staff to be as confident as they can be that they are safe. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you, Mark. Just so the community knows, we will be moving to item 7, and we have reopened up the raise hand button. That's again, raise your hand or press *9 if you're on the phone for items not on the agenda. And if it is about safety or reopening, that is on the agenda, so that's later. So just wanted to remind you, if you have anything for items not on the agenda, going once, going twice. All right, Paul, I'm going to allow you to talk for 3 minutes for an item not on the agenda. Hello, Paul. You're on mute still. Bottom left-hand side.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Okay. Yeah, this is per the school reopening. Is that considered on the agenda or not on?
It is on the agenda, so we'll have to hold off and wait a little bit. So we'll get right back to you. All right, so we will move to the consent agenda, item 8. And this is an action item.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Shane, your preferential vote?
Yes.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are we missing a dot? I think dot dropped off. Let me just check really quick.
I think she's coming back in right now. Sorry about that.
All right. I just got a text from her as well. There you are. So we just
I heard it, but I couldn't. I was.
Just wanted to make sure we're voting on the consent agenda. I'm going to ask for our vote again. So all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Dot. Sorry about that. Now I move on to a superintendent's report. And before you get going, Parveen, I do want to say that as we get started, I know that there's a lot of, we've received a lot of community comments, and I want people to know that we've heard all of your comments. We understand that there is a lot going on. We want to thank you for your comments. And tonight with this update, Parveen's really going to lay out a lot of different things. So I'd like us all to hear the presentation and then have board discussion, and then we will open it up for public comment.
Thank you. So we'll get started. It's my update on the roadmap to reopening and safety plan. In every single meeting, we will continue this sort of update. Next slide, please. Okay, so just these two next slides we always put in here because we want to remind everybody where we are. We're in the orange tier. And you can obviously take a look at that on the Alameda County website as well and kind of keep track of it on a daily basis, if you like. Next slide. Again, just the 7-day average positivity. I want to thank Amy is always updating these as we put this presentation together. So again, we're looking good, we're following directions, but we have to keep it up. It's really easy to kind of forget that the reason that we are where we are is because of exactly that people actually are following directions, staying distant, and wearing their mask and washing their hands and doing all of those things. So next slide. I wanted to just share that. So in the meantime, while we're looking at reopening in January, I wanted to just share with the community that the Alameda County Department of Public Health actually has the dates for reopening for elementary, middle, and high school now. Up to today, we only had permission to open elementary school. This afternoon, we did receive communication from the county health department and the Office of Education with the dates for middle and high school, which means, and it's clearly stated, that these are dates that districts may open. That doesn't mean that the county health department is saying, this is when you open. They're just letting us know that we can open moving forward based on these dates. Again, any opening depends on the current status of what's happening. You know, people could decide we're going to open on this date, and if we don't continue to do what we've been doing and things shift, we will get a different direction from the health department. So for elementary, it was October 13th, and for middle school and high school, it's now November 9th, I believe. Hubs have been in place for 3 weeks, and maybe more, actually. And I do want to say that we do have hubs in every school, and we are the only place we are still working on is Redwood High School with the smaller community. But there are hubs at every single school, and they've been going very well. Students are coming, staff is there, classified members are there, administrators are there doing a beautiful job, everybody. And all students are following directions. They're wearing their masks. Families are being wonderful about making sure they have the screener that they take before they come to school to let us know that they are healthy. And to be honest, I think it's important for folks to know that we have had, for example, a case in a family with children. And I want you to know everything was handled beautifully. We tracked, we traced, we made sure everybody's good, and the students are back. And there wasn't, it was not shared with other students. So we do know how to do that. And in the past, we've also had, we had a case with adults since we've been here since March. Again, we tracked, we traced, and we're good to go. We were good to go. Again, none of these so far have been cases that have been actually transmitted during work, but regardless, we are all over the place. You know, you go shopping, you're with family, and these things happen. But I do want to put everybody's mind at ease that yes, we can't ever say that we won't have a case, but I want you to know that people have done a really great job taking care of things, and we've been able to function well.
Harvey, just for that, it's community transmission, not at school, just to clarify.
Yes. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly. What we also wanted to share with you is that, we are working, as we have talked about before, to add additional hubs until we actually do reopen, because we know that there is more need than the one hub at many of our schools. So we are working on that. And hopefully we'll have some more open. Update on special education. I always want to make sure I include that because there's a lot going on behind the scene. Again, recognizing that there is additional difficulty with some of our students who are in special education. It's just a lot harder to do some of the things. And at the same time, it is very difficult for some of our special ed students as well as some of our other students to be in person. So there are currently students in special education in some of our hubs at the school site. And like I said, we are going to expand those hubs, not those hubs, but replicate and start other hubs. We do have support, there are support hubs being and are currently coordinated with also some of our just organizations we work with outside of school that we are providing services to some of our students. A preschool support hub just opened, and it is actually going really, really well. Today, I got a beautiful email from the teacher who said the kids were so excited. They did a beautiful job. They were happy to be there, and the teacher was happy. And I just wanted to like run over there and hug her for doing that. It went really well. In-person assessments are occurring as we speak across the district, along with some of them being virtual. So as appropriate. Next slide.
Harvey, before you go on, I know we had talked about getting some parents together before. Is there an update on that as well? I just want to make sure the community knows what we're working on to work with families.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. And please jump in as I go through the presentation. Thank you for reminding me of that. I should have added that in here. We are in the process, and we're almost done, of actually forming a special education parent advisory. And we should be starting with those meetings very soon. So more information to come. Absolutely. And that's going to really be important for us to give us another way of working with our community.
I see Joe has a comment.
Parveen, so the Special Education Advisory Parent Group, that'll be following the same model as the Parent Leadership Group that we currently have in place?
Yes, thank you for saying that. Yes, it will be. And we've decided, I think we want to make sure that the meetings are after 3 o'clock, as we have also moved our Parent Leadership Council to 3 o'clock. So that, because we know families are working with their children during the day. So for now, families are going to school with their children. So we have to remember that. Next. All right, so this is a chart that Miss Kayer, the magician, has put together for us that we are going to have on our website, and we're sharing with everybody. It really is like a checklist, but it's just a dashboard for everybody to keep track of what's happening. So there are things that we have completed, there are things that we have in process or in development, and we're going to continue to update it as soon as we have new information. So for example, I want to jump to, health and safety, you see there. I want to jump to school campus logistics, right? So we do have all the guidelines that we need for all of these things that are listed, but obviously now when we talk about reopening, it's going to take us a while to actually implement those. So those are specific for each school. So that's why it says implementation of site-specific logistics are in development. But we have much of what we need already in place. And then staff requests for accommodations are made as needed, and we have made some as needed. Labor agreement for hybrid learning, as you heard Mr. Milatnich speak to that. They're ongoing. We're meeting on a frequent basis to get that done, because I know that's really important and necessary. Substitute staffing for accommodated employees, we've done that as well, and we do, if they come up again, we will continue to do that as needed. COVID testing, I do want to say that the contract, and it says right here, COVID testing contract protocol for employees are in development, but the contract is actually itself is on the agenda tonight for you to consider approving. That contract allows us, it's a piggyback contract on the county one. It allows us to have surveillance testing once a month for staff with curative. And I've actually seen how it works, and it looks very doable and easy, and we get the results within 48 hours.
Joe?
I just wanted to add the comment that Parveen and I had the opportunity to attend the Palomars Parent Club meeting last week. And, usually we get a lot of questions about what's happening, but of course this meeting focused on this particular piece. And so we were really clear to the parents and staff there at the meeting that this is on our website. We asked them to go and look at it and see how much of this is completed and how we are really establishing readiness to open schools. And so I'd encourage the folks that are watching tonight to also go to the website and have an opportunity to read where we are on these things.
And once the contract is approved, I'll get you in a minute. Once the contract is approved for COVID testing, we actually already have a list of things we need to make sure we put in place. And there's training for our staff as well that we go through.
So I see in terms of the campus logistics, you've got implementation of site-specific campus logistics. I know we've acquired a lot of the PPE. Has that been distributed through to the school sites yet, or is that part of what's going to be you're going to do in the implementation
Yeah.
phase?
So thank you for asking that. We have all our equipment ordered. We have everything in place. When I say in development is because we want to make sure that we deliver everything at that time, because there are things that already are at school, and there are things that each school needs to look and see at what they need to order, but they are in our warehouse and we have them. So we have everything we need. And that's really why I put in development, because each school is going to be different. For example, the egress and ingress, right? Every school is going to be different. And I know I've seen on some websites where they have percentage of what they have accomplished. That just doesn't make any sense to me. When you've got 15 different schools, I can make up a number. But we have all the equipment we need. We just need to give staff time to set things up, to make sure they're ready to practice, those kinds of things. That's why it's in development. Otherwise, we have all of our safety protocols and guidelines in place. So great question. And then if you look at the bottom of this page, it does say that there is a link right here. Afterwards, anybody can click on it. Link to ACOE's list of schools reopening in Alameda County. So this shows who is already open. It's not the list that says what people have decided. This is what that county actually has put out for all of the schools that are open. And I want to say, when I look at that list, every single school on that list, there are no public schools except for Mountain House. It's one school, one house, it's like 15 students of that school that are part of Alameda County. So all of the schools in Alameda County that I am aware of, almost everybody so far that I know of are starting in January. No one is starting before then, except there may be one small school district. And I think even they had to go back to kind of shift that a little bit. Most of those schools have made the decision or are making the decision about the dates that they reopen, but nobody's opening before January. All right, next slide, if there are no more questions there. Okay, so we wanted to share the survey with you. I, first of all, want to it's unbelievable to get so many surveys when you do a survey as we normally do. But we had almost 4,000 people respond, 4,000 students represented. And that's amazing. I want to thank Amy for putting a lot of work into this to not only send it out. Thank you, Dot, for sharing with us that first day there was something that we had missed and we fixed. Thank you. But also to kind of disaggregate the data for you so that you can kind of see what we found. And she put this page on here for us because we wanted you to see that almost every school is represented. Of course, there's some more than others, but we got 1,041 from high school. That's pretty good. So that's excellent. Next slide. So on the left side, what best describes your child's typical internet access? This was important for us to know because we want to make sure that students have access. So as you see, 76% of our students have reliable access to the internet, to high-speed internet. We do have about 23% of our students who access to the internet is slow at home. And I can tell you that even I'm sure many of us are facing that, but this is a concern. There is a very small percentage, but still a few who say they don't have reliable access to the internet at all. Or they don't have access. So we have to, and the nice thing about these surveys are they are actually, we are able to, with again, more work that Amy is gonna have to put in there to share them with the school site so that they can see, because what our goal is a general idea, but we also wanna be specific and targeted and make sure that we do our job to reach out and say, if you don't have internet, what can we do? How does your child typically access classes? Because I think that access piece is really important, because our hope is that most students are using our Chromebook that we've given them or something like it. So as you see, I was happily surprised to see almost 74% almost are using the Chromebooks. That's really good. And then the other 25% are using a device, but they have their own device that they're more comfortable with. Again, we do have to pay attention to the two here with a smartphone, just to make sure that that's their choice and it's not because they can't access a Chromebook. And also we have folks who use a tablet, so that's fine. Please stop me whenever you have a question. Next slide. How much of the day is your child participating in learning activities from their school? So again, about 53% said the recommended time, but we do have about 29% of our students who said more than recommended. Again, this is why that disaggregation at the site is important. And the blue shows less than the recommended amount. So we want to know why that is. And then, of course, I saw that green and I thought, well, we need to find out who that is and make sure we remedy that.
Monica has a question or comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I attended the listening session for the Latin American parents, and several made a comment about too much work or too much homework. So, I mean, that's something I think we need to be aware of and address. And, you know, I don't know if that's because of internet access or if it's just the amount of work their student is getting, but it's something we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, we've heard that as well. We have. And I know our schools are working hard to, you know, there are times where, here's one thing that's unique this year, or actually unique for us. We started on August 13th, and we have no breaks, no real breaks. We may have a day here and there until Thanksgiving. That's a long haul. So there are school districts that start even earlier than us, but they do have like a few days in October as a week. I don't know what they call it, a break. Just like in February, our spring break is way far out compared to some other school districts, which means we have a long time to go. Some districts have a little week in between called the ski vacation now, or ski break, or winter break. Anyway, so that's a part of it as well. I think everybody's working really hard. Teachers are working hard, classified, the students, the families, and it's almost like we've gotten to a point where we just need to pause a little and kind of take a look at how we can lighten a little bit of that load. Again, rigor is important, but it is important for us to hear that there is too much. For some folks are saying there's too much. How satisfied are you with the communication you are receiving from your child's classroom and school? I have to say, this is really good. Yes, we want 100%, but we know that half of our families are satisfied, with 20% extremely satisfied. We do, I do worry that we still have 20% who say slightly satisfied, and obviously about 6% that say they are not satisfied. So again, finding ways to see how we can get messages out more and more. And I think Parent Square is a part of that. You know, now we can kind of get people updated easier. Next slide. When all county and state public health requirements can be met, mask requirement, cleaning, social distancing, etc., for school buildings to reopen to in-person learning, what best describes your plan? I plan to allow my child to physically return, or I do not plan to have them physically return. As you see from all of the surveys that we have, we had 73% who said they plan to allow their children to attend, and about 27% who said no. And then Amy actually separated it by elementary versus secondary. You know, secondary more so, a few more percentages, 3 more percentage, or 2.5 than elementary. Next slide. What difficulties have you faced accessing distant learning? So we've got difficulty understanding the assignment, and something really important for us to pay attention to. It's not in person, so it's more difficult for some students. Having to share the computer with other people, again, at each school site, who are these kids? Because we want to make sure that our goal has always been to give every student a device. They should not be sharing. They obviously will be sharing the internet. Internet connectivity, again, 23%. We want to know, is it the service they have? Is it something else? Navigating different platforms, we have heard that it's difficult because we're using, you know, Zoom. We're also using Google Classroom. I do want to thank Mr. Ko for working really hard, and his team and our teacher on assignment for technology, who have done so much work around this and have actually upgraded many, many things in Zoom and Google Classroom as well. And then some of our students are using Ingenuity. So again, no computer at home. We've got to find out who that is and make sure we give it to them. And no difficulties. But about 27% of our families said that. Next slide.
I mean, I just want to comment, Praveen. It just shows that there's so many different things that people are facing. So everybody is facing something, not only, you know, at a parent level, at a student level as well. So it's varied, and I'm sure there's more than just those pieces. And I know that we've received comments, you know, social and emotional wellness. A lot of people are really concerned about what kids are facing. So, you know, we recognize that, and so just a lot of things going on. So just, you know, everybody's facing something. So just wanted to say
and
that.
I think, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think one thing we have to recognize, and we recognize, is that there is intersectionality with some of those, right? So the people who said I have difficulty with this one doesn't mean that they don't have difficulty with the other one. Some of those are, you know, people could have marked many of them. So just really important information for us. How would you rate the amount of work your student is being assigned? Again, 65%, about 65%, about the right amount. And then about 24% said too much, and about 11% said too little. So again, something to pay attention to at each of our schools. How concerned are you about your child's educational progress during distance learning? So this one, slightly concerned is about 34%. Not at all concerned is about 18%. Concerned, we have 27%, and extremely concerned is 20%. So that is a red flag that we really need to pay attention to. So next. How concerned are you about your child's social and emotional well-being? As President Whitaker just said, we can see not at all concerned is 15%, but everybody else is pretty much either, very concerned, extremely, or concerned, or slightly concerned. So that's huge. How concerned are you about childcare while in distance learning? Again, you see the chart here. I was surprised to see a pretty high percentage not at all concerned, but I have to say some of it could be due to the fact that folks are able to work from home. But the other piece that makes me sad sometimes, not sometimes, that sometimes we need to think about is one reason could be that people have lost their jobs and basically they've lost daycare and now they are at home. So it could be either or, and even folks who work from home are still having difficulty having to teach their children and working and fulfilling all of their required, responsibilities. So next. So for us, obviously, as you saw on the dashboard, we will need to continue collaboration with Alameda County, and we continue to monitor everything. We implement the surveillance testing for staff currently on sites. So once it's pending board approval tonight, but once that's approved, we will put things in place, and hopefully in a week or so or two, depending on when they get to come and train us, we will, as soon as we have all that in place, we will go ahead and start testing, doing surveillance testing for folks who are already on site, which right now we have many. We do need to finish negotiations because in order for us to move forward and open, we do need to have sufficient staff. We need to continue our parent education and advanced training for reopening. So before we reopen, we already have in place the next steps of actually providing families with parent education, because they need to be clear about how that's going to work. Like, how do I drop my child off? What is required of me? How do we do this screening? All of those things we have in place, but we do have to now work with our families so that they're aware of it. So all of those things we'll work on and needs to happen. And again, that implementation at each school site, this is why it's great to have this time to do that. And then of course, for the board to decide the decision you made says that currently we're going to make that decision on the 13th on the dates and phases of reopening. And of course, you have had feedback from the community, as you said, and now you have also had a survey to consider. So with that, I'm going to stop and answer any questions you have. And so you also have time to discuss.
So Parveen, I know that, I know that Mrs. Fink mentioned earlier, CSCA, how thankful she was that we made a final decision for January. And I want to say things change so rapidly. And I want to be able, the community to know that we want to be as consistent as possible so that, but as more information comes, we may make changes. And even considering looking at, other districts are starting to consider things and what's that phased reopening plan look like. I guess for me, I'm wondering if we were going to go a phased approach, what, maybe potentially you could look at what that would look like based on the grades needed or with the most support needed or what that might look like, so that if we do decide to talk about that, we could have a recommendation or, for that phased approach.
Yeah, so just really quickly, we can come back to you with our recommendation for phase, not the dates, but the phases. For example, is it first grade and second grade and third grade? Is it kindergarten? You see what I'm saying? Because we won't, no school district is saying we're going to bring everybody back at the same time. That's just not feasible or really appropriate, because we want to be very thoughtful and very measured. So we can do that. We can come, obviously you can then discuss it. We also have a few more opportunities in November for you to take a look at that. Again, I think I think people are happy to, to just know that this is when we're not going to open before a certain time, or we're going to open after a certain time. So, and what you see from other districts is they are saying in January, but they're actually, many of them are saying, here's what the phase in would look like, or the dates.
Thank you, Parveen. Dot had her hand raised. Dot?
Thank you, Parveen, for sharing with us all of the work that has been going into this plan. I know it's a lot, and I feel like right now our county is in this real sweet spot. We've had really great reduction in the number of new diagnoses. Our hospitals are clear, and so it's absolutely appropriate that we're starting to talk about opening, because that's what the county says we're ready to do. You know, I always in the back of my head know that we're coming into cold and flu season, which in this year is probably also going to be called COVID season. So we need to be cautious about that. But you know, last week or the week before, I went to visit one of the learning hubs, and you know, last board meeting, you had talked about, or somebody had brought up that there were students that had a family exposure that were part of these learning hubs. And so I was kind of holding my breath, a little bit afraid about, would there be any spread within the hub? And there hasn't been. It's been 2 weeks, and there was this community exposure. The students were at school, but the safety measures that the staff put into place kept all of the students in that learning hub safe. So that gives me a lot of confidence in our process, in our staff, in making sure that the staff is safe and the students are safe. So I was, like I said, holding my breath to hear what happened with that community exposure, and if it would lead to any spread within our hubs, and it didn't. So there were 2 campuses and no spread. So that is a big confidence builder for me. And so I'm excited to talk about our next steps now. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
Gary?
Yeah, I agree with Dot. You know, I think that we are in a good place right now, but I think it's important to remember that this is a snapshot in time, and that is the orange or the red or whatever the rating is. It's what's going on this week. So I think all of us are really hoping we can open at some point in January. I think that's our goal. Maybe not spoken very loudly, but I'm pretty sure that's at least my thinking, and I suspect the same as the rest of you. We're very similar to all the other school districts in Alameda and Contra Costa County. But I think it's really important for us, because that is a snapshot in time, to keep our options open into early January and make a final decision then. I mean, we all hope we can get back into the classroom with our hybrid model and, you know, a phased opening and everything starting then. But there are a lot of, although we're doing really good, a lot of the rest of the country's not doing very good. And the school districts in Boston and Chicago just closed their schools again because they have major outbreaks in those cities. So I hope we avoid that. I think we're looking forward to a good January, I hope.
Joe and then Monica.
Thank you, Parveen, for the report. I think that it's new data, and we have said all along that we're going to base this on data and science. So we appreciate that. There was also a Alameda County Public Health event last week just for school board members to ask very specific questions. And again, that was new scientific information from the director, Dr. Moss, which was very pertinent and pointed towards schools and reopening schools. So I'm looking forward. I thank you for the report, and I'm looking forward to a robust governance team discussion after we hear from the community tonight.
Monica?
Yeah, thank you. I can see there a lot of work went into the presentation tonight. I had a question about what's your turnaround time, if you can even guesstimate it, once the board says, okay, let's have students back on campus. How long will it take you, or you, the collective you, mean staff, everybody, to be ready to get kids back in the classroom? Because my concern is, I mean, I know we talked about this last time. We want to see what's happening with cold and flu season and Thanksgiving and Christmas, but we don't want to let it go too far either, because I know there's a lot of anxious parents. They want their kids back in school, and kids want to be back in school. So.
Parveen, you're on mute. Sorry.
I had made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to do that. Happened again. Great question. I think to your point, if you, since the decision is not to open until January, which is what everybody else in Alameda County, as far as we know, has done as well, and based on all the information, that will give us, we need time to get everything in place. We need time to finish our negotiations. We need time to practice, to do all of these things. So I would say the sooner we know, the other piece that I want you to be aware of is our semester ends in December. That means that there are students, as we had promised, that if we can shuffle things around, if there are families who maybe were in virtual academy and they're like, oh, this is, you know, I want my children back in school when it does open, or the other way around, I want you to know that that's going to take a bit of time and a lot of work. Our team, the counselors, our ed services, our principals work their hearts out for days on end to get that done. And since we have some of that shuffling back and forth, the sooner we know the date of the phased reopening for each, you know, for what grade and, you know, elementary, middle, and high school, the better it is for us and better it is for families, because then they can say, okay, so if there is a chance, a good chance, or there's a date, now pending that everything stays the same. Again, if things change, everything changes if things go down. But then they can say, well, if we're going to go, it sounds like we're going to go back in January, or for middle school later in January or February, and my child's going to go back into hybrid, but I really don't want them to. This is going to be their chance to switch, or for the ones who are in virtual academy back. So if you ask me, there is something to be said about making a decision about the phase dates in January earlier on in November, so that that helps our staff as we're planning.
Sorry, Dot, it's hard. Now I'm so used to the hands here, and then I can't, now it's here. Go ahead, Dot, sorry.
I feel like setting a date for the middle of January makes sense. It allows a couple of weeks when we come back from winter break for teachers to prepare their students, to talk about the process, for the administrators to prepare parents, to talk about all of those things, the drop off, the egress, the ingress. So, and then we've passed the holidays and the bulk of cold and flu and COVID season. So to me, that makes sense to if we're going to set a date, to do it in the middle of January and not like the first day of the semester.
Go ahead, Praveen. And
I want to make sure I understood. So what I'm hearing is it's the opening, the actual school reopening happening in the middle of January is what we're talking about. I think we all agree. I've heard that.
Well, that's what I said. I don't know if anybody else agrees with that.
No, but are you saying, and I have to say, remember, we're not coming back like January 1st anyway. And then our teachers do, and schools do need time to set up their classroom and do all of those things. So we have to do some asynchronous for a few days for students so they can do that. So that makes total sense to me if we're going to be back in January, that it's not the first week, to be honest, just from where I stand. But I guess my question for you to consider is, can we make those decisions, again, pending, about those dates in November so that people can make their decisions? That's a question in my mind.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I was looking forward to discussing, was asking staff for a timeline as to what they need for the phased in to shuffle kids and so on and so forth, so that we have that data. I guess I'm a little concerned that we haven't heard from the community yet. And usually we listen to the community and then we have this discussion afterwards. So I don't know, Lavender, what your plans are. I kind of feel like I want to ask staff to put together this timeline, et cetera, but I want to honor the people that are waiting to be heard. I'm sorry.
No. We were planning on hearing from everybody as well. So that was part of this. I just wanted us to make sure we asked our questions, and had a discussion. We will come back after we get public comment. Dot?
And I just want to say for the record that while we're doing all this planning, and I know it's a enormous lift for your staff to do all of this, that we also focus on that 5% of students who are really struggling. We can't let that go. And of course, I know we won't, but I just feel like I need to say that.
So I do want to give a chance for public comment. I do want to remind folks on the phone that if you would like to public comment, press *9. And I know earlier we had Paul Pryor had his hand raised and he has not re-raised his hand, but I just want to make sure that he's aware that he can raise his hand now. Thank you, Paul. We currently have, so we have 30 minutes. It looks like we keep increasing. So I do want to give people appropriate time to comment, but I do want to make sure we have all the hands raised that we want to need so I can look at the timing. So if you have not raised your hand, I want to make sure it's up. Okay. So I'm going to take our first comment in the order received from Sarah Raymond. Sarah?
Okay, hello. Thank you. So I just want to say I'd like the board to continue to take a conservative approach towards reopening with an emphasis on the needs of special ed students, English language learners, and kids who don't have access to technology. As part of the planning, I urge you to reconsider the AM/PM model for elementary age students. There will not be adequate time in the transition to clean, and the short days are also a working parent's childcare nightmare. Regarding the specifics of safety plans, I'd like you to also please consider posting site-specific detailed information on each school's website so that parents can have a clear understanding of what we're signing our kids up for in terms of their safety. For middle and upper school, please be creative as many in the community can't picture how upper grades, as we know them to be, with their constant passing in the hallways throughout the day, can be socially distant and safe from a COVID perspective. Please also continue to expand capacity for our hubs, prioritizing our special ed kids and English language learners. With respect to the survey question about whether or not we intend to send our kids back to school, that question really required a third answer, which is I don't know, and I will need to see what the circumstances are at the time. We have the holidays, cases on the ride, cold and flu season, and we also don't know what the impact is going to be of the current commercial reopenings. Please also be sure that the district's communication to the community regarding planning for reopening is crystal clear from this point forward. There was a tremendous amount of confusion following the last board meeting regarding steps the district is taking to prepare and to reopen, whatever that date would be, causing an extreme amount of stress for the community members. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to mute your line. And next we have Rosabelle Chang, followed by Anne. Roosevelt?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, everyone. I had the chance to speak with Superintendent Amadi and a couple board members, so thank you. And thank you for the opportunity for me to talk to all the board members tonight and to the community who's listening. I really would like to advocate that this board decide in November on a date for reopening and not to come back in January to talk about the plans. Teachers, staff, and children should all be as safe as possible. We do this though, we've done this. We've done this in the past through fire drills, through earthquake drills, even school shooter drills. The term bargain for safe return is frustrating because Alameda County mandates safety measures for schools. And if the county safety standards are not good enough, then I do want to know about it because I would want to bargain for my child's safety and every single children. And so science is science, public health is public health. We cannot claim to be proponents of science and public health and then reject science and public health when it doesn't suit our desires. We rely on science to tell us wearing masks is paramount. Please wear your mask. We are happy when public health tells us it's okay to get takeout at the restaurant, worship at our houses of worship, and swim at our community pools. Yet we would reject public health and say that the county standards aren't good enough. That is hypocrisy. Every policy has winners and losers. Teachers are just as important to our community as everyone else. No more, no less. You've now seen that 95% of our community members are not teachers. 80% of this community are concerned about academics. 85% are concerned about social economics. With all due respect to the hubs, they are not good enough. They are not schools. And so let us at least acknowledge that not providing families who want to return the option to return is a policy that privileges 5% of this community. We talk about anti-race, anti-bias. Let's talk about anti-bias. 75% of the teaching community is white. 75% of the other part of this community is not. This policy privileges a predominantly white group over predominantly non-white group. So here's my provocative question for this board. If today 75% of the teachers were not white, would you override public health standards? Or would you set a date for reopening today? Please set one. Please do not kick this can down the road. Your community, 4,000 respondents have responded to this survey, and they have made their voices loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Roosevelt. I'm going to mute your line. Next, we have Anne, followed by Pablo. Hello, Anne.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Great. First, I want to thank everyone for everything. I'd like to state that earlier this morning, I submitted a petition request to the school board where we asked the school board to rescind their move to delay the decision until January 2021 and to set a reopening date sooner. I would like to say that from my perspective, setting realistic milestones and target completion dates are important components of effective project management. Therefore, if it's not possible to set a date after 7 months, then please consider greater transparency to your constituents as to the reasons for the delay. And moreover, consider additional details as to whether cost analyses have been done to implement the approved schedules, if there's projected shortfalls, and if other schedules or reopening strategies are under consideration. I believe we've spoken a bit to that, so I do thank you for that. But again, from an elementary perspective, really encourage consideration of other schedules that may be more attainable, especially in a shorter ramp-up time. Additionally, from an elementary perspective, I'd like to express concerns that there are some district administrators that are stating their data demonstrating that there are no learning losses in the majority of students at their respective school sites. I find this very concerning for several reasons. One, it shows that there's a lack of understanding related to differences between data that have been rigorously collected and analyzed versus anecdotal information. Two, the perspective is inherently biased and could potentially cause more harm than good by denying students comprehensive and unfettered access to their legally entitled education. And 3, with the upcoming first trimester assessments, there may be unintentional pressure on our teachers and students to perform well, which may bias the administration of these tools and interpretation of the results, which could lead to well-intentioned administrators and district personnel taking any positive indicator as proof that distant learning is equivalent to in-person instruction, and thereby justifying a lack of urgency in the physical reopening of campuses. I propose, on the contrary, that any positive results may more likely be more of an indicator of the relevant affluence of our community, and that many families at the elementary level have had to hire in one-on-one supervision for our students, or have had parents or other family members foregoing wages in order to supervise this work. And so that's why if we were to survey the actual economic impact of this distant learning model, we might find that it's costing us more to keep students home than it is to reopen schools in a risk-reduced manner. This is why it's very important for us to collectively address the problem. And if the previously approved schedules are too costly to implement safely, we should reconsider viable alternatives that provide academic rigor while adhering to good public health principles. And I will say that it is very unfortunate that both our state and federal lawmakers have not prioritized funding for our schools. I do appreciate all of the efforts and recognize the impossibility of this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. I'm going to mute your line. Hello, Pablo, I'm going to open the line for you, and Dolly, you're next.
Hello, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, Pablo, go ahead.
Perfect. So first, I wanted to thank the board and thank the district for giving everyone stability and as an educator, I'm also a father of 3 children in the district. I have an elementary school, a middle schooler, and a high schooler, and I've gotten to see pretty much all of the different approaches, and I want to thank the teachers. Their effort is amazing, and I absolutely agree with the board and with Parveen that it makes sense to set a date for January right now, because it will allow for all of those decisions that Parveen was saying. Ms. Parveen and Ms. Amadi, thank you so much. I do have a plea to see if the district could have some technical help about students being able to access pretty much everything on their school Chromebooks, because they can, everything is open and they can pretty much go around everything and open anything they want, and that's not constituent, great screen time for them. I will love to see middle and high schoolers getting packages as well, so they can work on paper and not all the time on the screen. I want to thank you for the pods. I think they're helping greatly. They're obviously not similar to in school education. It's not, but it is a great help, and there's a lot of children that can really get advantage from it and use them. And I would love to see those expanded until we can open safely. And I just want to make sure that everybody, let's make sure that we can all take a breath, and we're all biased. We all have our different approach, and it's just a matter of thinking what is best for the district, what is best for everybody, and not our own situation only. So from my point of view, obviously the way that the district is doing it's the best way for everybody, and I want to thank you for that, and I want to thank you all for all the hard work that you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo. I'm going to mute your line. I'm going to bring in Dolly, followed by Bill Tiroli.
Hello, I'm Dolly Adams. Quite a few people know me already. I'm a teacher, have been a teacher in Castro Valley Unified. I had a community member contact me concerning the company performing the COVID-19 tests. I looked into it a little bit. Seems to be a reliable company. I think they've tested the Dodgers and large communities in Texas, and they have originally based in California. I would be an advocate for choosing an opening date, either in November or December. I've heard from a lot of community members about they really want to know when the schools would really open. And I would think that teachers in the school district and staff would also like to know really when that opening date would happen. However, we know that health concerns could override this, if the infection rates go way up in the community. Also, I'm very curious to know if we're still considering the model where there are 2 adults with 14 kids and how that would work in secondary school. Or if there's some other model being proposed is it still going to be in the pods? I don't want to take up any more of the board's time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dolly. I'm going to mute your line.
Hi, am I on?
You can proceed.
Okay. Bill Tiroli. I have a child at independent and second grade, CVPE. My observation over the last couple of board meetings and what I wanted to kind of make a point of tonight is that what I see happening is decision paralysis. And I think that a lot of the things that I'm hearing as downstream issues that will come out of a primary decision, things like will parents want to switch options? Will other decisions get made about what kids and parents want to do are really going to be based on whether or not you guys decide to accept the plan. I don't necessarily advocate for a specific date because that may be affected by other decisions that happen in the meantime. But I think waiting till January to make a decision about the plan is wrong. A decision about the plan should be made once the plan is complete and other things that come up along the way can be dealt with. Then maybe you can come up with a date. But if you wait to make that decision, a decision made in January might not take effect till February or March. So the longer we wait to make that first decision is going to affect what happens down the way. And if the idea is that we want to open as soon as it is safe to do so, then decisions now matter. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Bill. I'm going to mute your line. I have DV followed by Rebecca Stenek-Rykoff. DV?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
My name is Dana Vickery. I'm a second grade teacher at Jensen, and I'm also a parent of an 8th grader at Canyon Middle School. I have worked in the district for 7 years, and I am very proud to say for the first time in the 7 years that I've worked in this district that I am so proud to work in Castro Valley. I am so grateful that the district office and the board is listening to teachers and staff and families, and I appreciate all of the efforts that they've taken to keep students, families, staff, and teachers safe. As a parent of an 8th grader at Canyon Middle School, I saw the presentation from April Wong, and I just want to thank her and all the teachers and staff at Canyon Middle School. Your presentation was proof of all the creativity, innovation, and hard work that has been put into distance learning and how to make it work. I support your decision to wait to discuss opening schools until January 13th. In the district. I think that we all know that distance learning is not equivalent to in-person learning. There are a lot of logistics that need to be figured out. As Mark had mentioned, the CVTA president, toilet seats, monitoring students in the classroom, monitoring students in the bathroom. This is not a fire and earthquake situation. This is COVID. This is airborne, and we need to take this seriously. And ultimately, if it is not safe to hold a meeting in person to discuss reopening schools for in-person learning, it's probably not a good time to discuss reopening schools. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to mute your line. And Rebecca, you're on, followed by Jennifer Bremer.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I want to acknowledge that there's been a tremendous amount of work done by the school district, by the county, by public health on all these plans. But I want to note that we keep planning and revising everything for today's situation, not for tomorrow's situation. When you look at the trajectory for Alameda County, it doesn't necessarily look like we're headed to the yellow tier, especially with things like restaurants reopening at indoor dining capacity at 50%, which is crazy. And we have holidays coming up, and people can be traveling. Secondly, I want to note that certainly we have not seen a plan from the district that addresses the high-risk students in the district. Black and Latino children are at the highest risk for
Rebecca, I don't know if we lost you, but we cannot hear you right now.
I have not seen a plan from the school as to how they will deal with the fact that 1/3 of the student body is in this higher risk group. In the short term, I would ask that the school focus more on finding ways to bring low risk small groups together, not just expanding the hub program that currently exists, but also finding ways for, maybe a teacher can meet with a fraction of their class, 1 day a week, five or 6 or 7 kids outside with the mask for 45 minutes, much lower risk than many of the other activities we're discussing here today. Finally, I'm asking this board to work with the California School Board Association to advocate with our state lawmakers and with our local lawmakers for our state to prioritize the opening of schools over the opening of other economic, commercial outlets. The fact that we can have, these super spreading environments open soon, such as indoor dining and bars, that's just going to kick us back up into a dangerous zone again. We're never going to be able to sustain school opening unless we are in a situation where we've actually contracted the spread of the disease and really, locked down the places where it's super spreading. So I ask, I ask for the school board to advocate for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm going to mute your line. I'm going to allow Jennifer Bremer, followed by Michelle Castro. Jennifer, there you go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. So my concerns are about health and safety, and I appreciate all the protocols that have been put in place and reopening plans. However, I am concerned that they're not really being followed. As an employee at Proctor, we are just in the process of opening a second hub, which I think is in a very dangerous location. We've expressed, several teachers, staff members, myself have expressed our concerns earlier when the proposed hub opening was in our science room, and the concerns mainly about ventilation. There's no ventilation in that room. Our heating and air has been shut down since May. And even in my location, I have a small room, and in the library, there's no ventilation, and we have yet to receive any type of air purifiers to keep the air clean. And there's 9 people in this building, and we're very, very concerned that adding 12 more, the 4 staff members and 8 students, that this could become a problem. Prior to this, when the hub was presented, we were able to convince administration to move that to the multi-use room. And currently, our second hub just opened yesterday. Still, the air purifiers in the main rooms that are shared by everyone are not there. And one of our staff members has chosen not to come back to work and work from home due to this. And 3 or 4 others are considering that. And I just think that with just a little bit of more planning, all of this could have been alleviated. There are several other locations on campus that would not impose that threat to others, at least until the right ventilation can be installed and working. And so that is a huge concern as a safety measure. If we're not able to do that, just for the teachers, what's going to happen once the students come? Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm going to mute your line. I'll bring on Michelle Castro, followed by Netta.
Hello, thank you
Michelle.
for allowing me to speak. I would just like to say that I think as a parent in the community with children at Canyon and at the high school, that if we wait until halfway through January to make a decision on when they can safely phase themselves back into school, it's allowing more lost time. I know things are going to change as far as numbers and rates of infection going into the cold and flu season, but that is what we should be looking at now, the phased opening plans now, and not waiting until halfway through the first month of the year. Things are just going to continue to go back and back a week, and before you know it, they won't be going back to school at all next year, which I find to be very frustrating as a single working parent in this community. Not every parent in this community has two people in the home that is able to stay with children while the other parent is out making a living. And I think that that is something that a lot of people in Castro Valley are not aware of and really aren't really concerned about. And I think that it's unfair, and they need to look at not every household has that privilege. So the sooner we can make a plan to get kids back into the classroom would be better for the overall community and for the mental well-being of children. I know for one, I've had to send my son to my mother's house so that he can stay on target, because them staying home by themselves while I'm working is not working for our family. Having gone to my mother's house, he has said to me, I feel like I have something to live for now, like I have something to go and do. And that was very alarming to me as a parent, that my son feels alone and in distress because he is not around other people all day. Okay, that's all I want to say. So please, let's try to make a plan to look at a reopening sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I have the last three folks coming up: Netta, Paul Pryor, and Carrie Rodriguez. So I'm going to open it up for Netta.
Yes, hello.
Well, Netta, please proceed.
I want to thank the board again and thank the district on the approach that you have taken in setting the date for discussing the date for reopening. While I think it allows better concentration on the things that we need to do to get to a point to open the school safety. It's kind of bringing the conversation to the right place right now. I do want to ask that we reconsider the AM/PM schedule for elementary and focus on something different for hybrid. I think that will cause some problems from a safety perspective, as well as a host of other issues. I've seen some really interesting and creative options presented at other districts. I saw one where in the morning it was distance learning for everybody, and then in the afternoon, one day a week for short, amount of time, 6 or 7 of the kids each kind of rotate through and take a different day, just for that social emotional aspect. So, and I think somebody else raised an idea like that up today too. And I think that's something to really consider, some form of that. I also want to ask that some kind of community, if the district can work on somehow working with somebody regarding childcare and expanding the hubs, which is clearly a problem for some families. I also agree with the site-specific safety protocols per school being posted. That would be really helpful information. The special ed, I would love to see a parent advisory board for those parents. And also the survey, I had a lot of difficulty with that question, the one that the words were changed to. And so I don't know that the information that was reported on that was accurate, because I will say that the response that I would have changed my response. So, and I actually, anyway, long story. I agree with Sarah that there needed to be a third response to that question. And I would have chosen the third that she mentioned. Also, I have to agree with the idea that it's not, if it's not safe for us to be meeting in person, it's not safe for schools to reopen. And this is such a moving target that I agree with not setting the date for schools to return just yet, but I'm glad we're setting a date for deciding it. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your hard work and everything that you do, and for really starting to listen to the parents. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Nana, we're going to mute your line. I think I accidentally asked you to unmute. I'm going to bring in Paul Pryor. Welcome back, Paul. Uh-oh, where did Paul go? Oh, there you are, Paul. And you just have to unmute on the bottom left-hand side.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Regarding elementary school reopening, it amazes me that Castro Valley teachers continue to receive their full pay while working from home. Given that the teachers are not providing the full service for which they were hired, namely to provide classroom instruction and take custody of our kids for approximately 6 hours each day, why should we continue to pay their full salary? I am unable to work from home. I have to physically go to work in order to get paid. If I don't go in, I don't get paid. There are thousands of people throughout Castro Valley who are faced with this choice. Go to work, risk getting the virus, or stay home and perhaps apply for unemployment benefits. In fact, many people have been, by force of law, been forced to stay home and not work, such as hairstylists, gym operators, restaurant workers, etc. By any measure, the educational product being provided via distance learning is substandard. For every student learning from home, there is a parent or guardian there supervising them. That parent or guardian must sacrifice his or her time, perhaps work fewer hours, or take a leave of absence from their job in order to watch after their child. So this has been a real financial cost to many, myself included. I've had to reduce my hours in order to be with my kids at home while they're in class. Determining which YouTube video my first or fourth graders should watch in order to learn math or science is not a difficult thing to do. I can provide as good an educational product myself as what is being provided now. Why should we pay teachers to do what we can just as easily do ourselves? There is plenty of online content available for free. Khan Academy comes to mind. The pertinent issue now is this board and its failure to do its duty. I think the members of the board have forgotten who their constituency is. Their constituency, the people they need to answer to, are the citizens, the parents, the voters of Castro Valley. They work for us. They represent us, not the teachers. The question needs to be asked, why have they given the teachers carte blanche to simply do as they please, given that Alameda County has given us the green light, certainly for elementary students? If teachers don't feel safe, they can stay at home. If parents don't feel safe having their kids at school, they can homeschool them. But where is it written? What law or ordinance or clause in the teacher's contract allows them to work from home and get paid? Why are the teachers being afforded this luxury that few of us in the real world are allowed? How can it be unsafe for teachers while at the same time we have learning hubs on school grounds with a living, breathing adult present? Are union members more susceptible to contracting COVID than the rest of the population? Tuesday is election day. 2 of these board members' names are on the ballot. Remember that this board works for us, the voters. We hire them and we can replace them in the same manner via the ballot box. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul. We're going to mute your line. I'm going to bring Carrie Rodriguez in to talk. Carrie? Carrie, are you there? Carrie, I'm going to give you a few more seconds to speak. All right. I'm going to disable talking, Carrie. And I will bring us back to the board to discuss. Joe?
Well, we went all kinds of places with that. I'm reminded of the comment I made when we first started this out. We're not going to make everyone happy. And we're certainly right now not going to make much of anyone happy. So I'm disappointed. But again, I'm heartened that we have listened to our community. We have listened to the science. We have listened to the data. And we've made the best decisions that we can based on that information. Earlier, I referenced that I felt like I needed a little bit more data to have a conversation as far as the reopening. And that was the piece that Parveen talked about the amount of time that it would take to move students around, et cetera, because I do think, again, if we go back to the dashboard, we've completed all of those issues except essentially whether or not we're going to be able to guarantee to have staff in each classroom. And as Mark and Parveen indicated, negotiations are going forward and hopefully we'll be able to guarantee that soon. So I would like the board to think about, as we're having a conversation, asking the staff to come back to us, and I'll make a motion later after conversation, but asking the staff to prepare a phased in on-site learning timeline for us so that we know how long it's going to take to get schools ready to open.
Thank you, Joe. Dot, you had your hand raised?
Yes, I also wanted to acknowledge that we're not going to make everyone happy, but that's really not our job to make anyone happy, right? Our job is to make the best decision for our school district, for our students, and for our community. And those are sometimes hard decisions, and you have people who say things that don't align with how you feel. I just want to say that our teachers are working extremely hard, probably harder than they ever have doing distance learning, and it's not ideal. And it's no one would say that this is better than being in a classroom, but this is what we have. So I just want to give props to our teachers and our administrators for doing all that they've been doing since they've been asked to teach their students from afar. That being said, I think it is time for us to talk about when to set that date when we start to bring students back. And I mentioned before public comments about the middle of January, after the holidays, so that we've had some time after school starts again in the second semester, so that teachers have time to prepare their students and administrators have time to prepare schools and families for returning to campus. That's it.
And with your comment, Joe, and with your comment, Dot, I mean, I think combining what you're both saying, if we come back and we talk about the opening plan to give parents enough time to decide, what that timing would look like, what those site-specific plans say, in that phase-in approach. That way we can make not only make an informed decision, but so can parents, so can families. All things constant, because if we change into different tiers, it's all a wash. But I think that thinking about, I would also like with that opening plan, how much time it takes, recommendations from, staff on which grades as part of that reopening plan. And then if we're going to be looking at new recommendations for the different hybrid models. What does it look like? What have we learned? Is there any change there? Parveen? Oh, you're on mute, sorry.
I just want to clarify a couple of things. We can, if that's the direction we're going to get tonight, that would be no problem for us to come back with recommendations for which grades go first, second, and dates for you to consider. That and I, as I said before, I think the sooner we know that people know that, the better, especially as we're looking at the end of the semester and possibly switching some programs for kids. I do want to say we have worked so hard. People have worked really hard on every piece of this. And to start looking at the structure that you already voted for is going to take months on end. And I have to be honest, that's another whole thing that's thrown into this mix that I don't know if we at this point have the capacity to go back and start all over again. So I would say we know that maybe the morning afternoon isn't perfect for everybody, but I can tell you that was done purposefully. We do have time to clean. All of those things are in place. And I just want to caution us against that. But I have no problem coming back to you with some recommendations if that's what you want me to do. I wanted to clarify a couple of things I heard from folks. There was a question about when we do reopen, is it going to be 2 adults to 14? No, that is only for hubs when the schools were not allowed to open. Once we reopen, actually moving forward from October 13 on, for reopening, the actual reopening, all you have to do is to make sure, obviously, there's a qualified adult in the room, but you have to have, the goal is to have half of the students in the room at the same time. So since we have 25 in elementary in K3, that would be about 12, 13 kids to 1 adult. So in high school, the most we would have is 16 because, you know, if it's 32, obviously PE outside is different. But the guidance from the health department is you can't have everybody, you have to divide it in half, which is why that AB model is what we have in the morning. So that's one clarification. The other thing I heard a couple of times was protocols, specific protocols or specific, protocols for each school. The protocols are protocols throughout the district. We have our safety plan, we have our protocols. Please, if you have any questions, ask us. What you will get, this is why we need a little, we need to know when so that we can start planning, is the specific details of that. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be online, but they have to train the staff and train the parents and have all that information. So those things will come later when they have worked on all of this. For example, one school has 2 exits and entrances. One school has 5. So those are very specific and they will do that. But I don't want people to think that they're going to have different protocols in general. Everybody's going to have the same protocols. You have to have different egress, ingress. Now, how many that is specific. I think the only other thing I wanted to say, there was a comment about the question that that was incorrect and we corrected. We had, I believe, about 300, and had we not gotten 4,000, we would have had to done it over again. Just so you know, we had 4,000 surveys, so I apologize for the 300, but we can look at those and see how they line up as well. But we had almost 4,000 people responding. So again, I apologize for that. That's it.
Monica. Monica and then Joe.
Yeah, I have to agree. It would be good to have a plan, a proposal, kind of like what you sent us, like the schedule that Albany was looking at, and some recommendation, because you know better than us what your timetable is going to be in terms of bringing staff back, bringing students back. I mean, that's not knowledge we necessarily have. The other thing that I think would also give parents some peace of mind, because I know if my child were there, I'd want to see what a classroom looks like. I looked at the website the other day and I couldn't find it. If we could post some pictures, kind of like what you did for the Measure G presentation, as to what classrooms are going to look like, just to give parents some sense of what they're actually sending their kids into, the offices they might see. But I know for the most part, we're not going to be allowing parents on campus. So to the extent we can give them some visuals so they know what the sites are going to look like, I think that would be helpful too. I know as a parent, I would want to see, and you'd be kicking me off campus because I'd want to know what a classroom is going to look like. So if we could provide that, I think that would be helpful too.
Sorry,
just so everybody knows, our safety plan that we posted and discussed last time, within that are pictures of PPE, classrooms, offices, and things like that. They're in there. They're just hidden within the document. And I think you brought something up about like parents not being allowed on campus. I mean, those are all new things that we really have to train people on, right? Because we love having families and parents come. But now we have to your point, really inform people what they can and cannot do, where they can pick up, how do we stagger. Those are the things we need to work on. So thank you.
Back to you, Jill. Did you hand raise?
Well, I guess the direction I'm going is one, not to change the plans for what in-person learning is going to look like. It's also not to tonight change the decision to talk on January 13th. But my direction is to have the staff present us with a timeline of what it's going to look like and take to phase in-person learning at either our November 18th meeting or even at a special meeting. And at that time, once we have that data, we might want to talk about the possibility of an actual start date. But I'm not guaranteeing that or speaking for the board as a whole. I'm just thinking that if we have one more set of data, that might enable us to make a more concrete decision.
Go ahead, Parveen, and then Monica.
Yeah, so what my understanding is so far is what I'm hearing is, let's say we have a meeting on November 18th, I believe. We have a meeting on November 10th for, it's a special board meeting on the budget. So there's a possibility to add time to that or do it before then at a board meeting. It's not going to take us very long to come back to you with, this is our recommendation for which grades, which dates, to come back to you. So it's always nicer when that kind of meeting is a one item meeting. So we could do that. And then at that board meeting, at that special meeting, then you can say, okay, we like this recommendation. This is what we're going to do for January. That way you've made the families and our staff know what day, which grade, so that parents can also make a decision about shuffling in between programs if that's necessary.
Monica?
Yeah, I was just curious, Joe, what other data were you talking about? Because I thought that was the kind of thing that you were looking for, was sort of a tentative schedule as to kindergartners come back January 1st, first graders come back January 3rd. I mean, I'm just throwing out numbers, but just kind of a tentative schedule that we could, vote on.
What I was hoping to get from staff was how long it would take to do some of these things. Parveen's referenced it a couple of times. You know, if parents want to move to in-person versus virtual, or they want to go from in-person to virtual, and those kind of logistical things, how long it's going to take the staff to do that, so that we have that information and consider that information if we want to set starting dates for January versus the one we've already got. I'm just saying it's a little bit more information to help us.
So it's basically saying, if we decide today, we're going to need, I'm just going to make a guess, 30 days to do all the logistical things, provide information to parents to make this happen. That's what you're looking for. And then on top, with which grades first?
With the understanding that I'm not necessarily saying that we have to discard the January 13th date. I'm just saying that we would have more information to consider that.
Go ahead, Parveen.
So let's say you're all available on November blank next week. What we can come to you is, here is what our recommendation is for this grade and this grade to start on this day, and this grade and this grade for you to consider, because it would be important for us to have that, because the sooner we know, the better it is for this kind of planning and that kind of.
Or could we ask you to come to us with a plan of starting in the middle of January, and then you give us a plan of what that looks like? For me, that feels better. Because then we will have made a decision tonight.
Yeah, we could that night, you mean, we can do that. We can come, and just realistically, the first week of January, I can't remember right now exactly what day we come back. I'm looking at Amy so she can tell me. Yeah, 4th of January, we come back. That then gives us a week to get everything set up. So it is like the middle of January. So yeah, we can come back to you with a recommendation. You can change the dates here and there.
No.
So again, my point is not tonight to set a date. It's to get the data on how long it's going to take for us to get ready to open, so that we can set a date. So Dot, I'm not opposed. I'm not saying the 13th or the 20th or anything like that. I'm just saying I think there's another piece of information that would help us, because I don't want to get to January 13th and let's say hopefully the county's in yellow and we say, okay, we can open, and then we hear that we have logistical steps for the next 3 months before we can open. I just think it's data we can use to have this conversation.
Go ahead, Dot, then Parveen.
Okay. And I hear what you're saying, but I also feel like if we say, we as a board, whether or not you all agree with me, want to bring students back and start our phase in on January 13th or whatever day, what does that look like from a planning perspective?
Gary?
You know, this is a very long discussion. I mean, really all we need here is for Parveen to put together a model. Pick any date you want, Parveen, the one that makes the most sense, as an example of what it might look like. And then we can figure out what we want to do. I think that will help us a lot. And we can just cut to the chase here, maybe. Will that do it for everybody, you think?
I don't know if hands are raising or thumbs are going up in response to Gary.
But Gary, I'm not even thinking that the model needs a date. Again, I'm thinking the model gives us the information we need and we can set a date. Oh, look, he got so mad at me, he went away. Ooh.
No, internet connectivity issues. Monica had her hand up and then I'll hand it over to Parveen.
Yeah, and I'm thinking we need both. Because if we're gonna have a discussion and we're gonna do a special board meeting, we may as well combine the two, because the information about how long it's going to take and staffing kind of drives the second part in terms of dates. So, I mean, we don't have to stick with those dates, but I think we need both pieces of information. If we're gonna do a special board meeting, we may as well get everything instead of having one meeting for this little bit of information and another meeting for the next piece of information, knowing that things may change, particularly with the holidays and people traveling and getting together with family. Then when we come back in January, we can say, okay, we have a plan, let's implement it. And everybody is kind of on notice as to, has an expectation as to what may happen so that they can prepare their schedules, childcare and all that.
Go ahead, Parveen.
Okay, let me suggest this, that whichever date in November that you choose, and we can talk about that after this, on that day, I would like to come to you with a list of this grade and this grade on this day as a recommendation, starting in January, obviously. On January 13th, it's this grade and this grade. And then the next week after that, it's this and this, all the way through 12th grade. Because now that we can open all the way, I can bring that to you. And the reason I would give you those dates is because we have looked at what that, to me, when I come to you with that recommendation, you can assume that we have looked at everything and we feel that we would be ready by then, considering that it could all change if the county changes. Does that make sense? And then we would say and the reason really, I think I would bring you that, I wouldn't say this date is good for this if we don't feel like we're going to be ready. So that gives me enough to work with to bring to you. And then obviously you have to kind of decide which day you want to do that at. So it would be one meeting.
Yeah, I like that plan, Parveen.
Do we need to task that with a motion, or are we just giving direction?
I think we do, but Shane, was that your hand? I want to give Shane a chance to speak and then we'll go back to Dot.
I just would like if we figured out that November date when we're discussing that, because I think it's absolutely imperative that we get a student perspective on this, especially those in secondary learning. They're able to form their own opinion. So I think it's vital that I could definitely spearhead that, sending out how we did the family surveys, but specifically directed at students before we say, oh, we're going to begin phasing in on January something, whenever we decide that on November. So I think it's beneficial if we come up with that date that we're looking at in November so I can set up a survey.
Okay. Yeah, you would, it would be important for you to work with your principal to do that for high school. And then we would do that for, obviously high school kids can actually really are going to be the ones who start later, but it would be good. So we can work together on that. That's no problem. I think it's important for us to hear. So.
Wait, Gary is trying to get back in. He just sent me a text. He can't get back in. That's why I raised my hand.
Oh, okay. Let's see. We're not admitting. I don't see him.
I don't know if I've ever scared anyone off of Zoom before. I've scared people out of the room before, but poor Gary.
I hope he didn't lose power. But so we'll wait.
I'm just going to jump in. I just want to thank Shane for bringing that up. I think that's one of the benefits of having a student board member, because I know when we were looking at moving the high school's finals up, Matt did a survey and was just instrumental in it. So thank you, Shane, for bringing that student perspective and reminding us that high school students are old enough to have an opinion about this, and it's good to consult them as well.
And they can vote when they're 18 and they can register to vote at 16. So hopefully all of the ones who can vote have voted already. If not, they will vote. So we'll work with Shane. We'll work on a survey and then Shane can present.
Sorry, I'm just sending a note to Amy saying that Gary's trying to come back in. So she can watch for him to bring him back.
He's not on the attendee side. I keep checking. So I wonder if it's his internet, potentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we.
Yeah, you were asking if it's a motion, President Whitaker or Ms. Loss, but since it's not action or possible action, you can just give me direction and say, bring this back, and we can decide on what day is, and we'll set up a, and what date. You can give us direction, and then we'll do that.
Can someone text Gary a call-in number? Maybe his internet is down and a phone call would work better, please. Thank you.
Yeah, it's on the calendar invite, but he might not be able to. We'll get
Yeah, if he can't get to his internet, he probably can't get to the calendar invite.
Calendar, yeah. Although my phone works even when there is no internet. Amy's trying.
He doesn't have a smartphone.
Oh, that's right. No, he does. He has a new phone. No, he has a new phone. Amy's trying to get him. We kept teasing him enough, so he got a new phone.
Just texting him now as well, just to make sure. Sorry for those of you waiting on the line. Sometimes we have technical difficulties, as seen here tonight.
We don't have those technical difficulties when we're in person.
All right, so hopefully he can get back in. I sent him the number, the passcode, and the web ID via text.
I did too, so.
Well, crossing fingers. While we're waiting. Go ahead, Joe.
As part of my report, I was going to just do a voting commercial to remind people that even if they haven't registered to vote, they can go to any voting location in the county and request a ballot. So I want to make sure people know that. And Gary's back.
Yay! Although he's trying to connect to audio. Okay, got it.
All right, Gary, to get you up to speed, we had talked about just giving direction on a meeting to bring forth that what it would take and how much time it would take to open schools and at what grades to open first. And at that meeting in November, whatever that date may be, based on our availability, we would, consider voting of a date if we would like to, but it's not not that we're going to, just that we can.
Sounds great. Sorry, I don't know what happened. I just got dumped off. I think Joe cut off my signal there just to get rid of me. Yeah. Anyway, my only comment would be that we not have it on the same night as the budget meeting, because that's such a big topic of its own. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Gary. Dot?
I think we should be honest with Gary and tell him that while he was gone, we actually voted him off the board.
Great, I'm leaving.
Off the island.
Well, I want to appreciate the open conversation tonight. I want to thank the community for speaking up and for everyone for taking the surveys that were sent. That is more information. I do want to continue to recognize the social and emotional impacts to everyone, our students, our teachers, our staff, our community, and everyone who's facing different things at home for all different kinds of reasons at work. So just want to thank the community in general, the board and staff. I know this isn't an easy conversation and that we do continue to talk about it because of its importance. So just want to thank you before we move on to our next agenda item. So thank you to you all. Parveen?
Yeah, before we move on, I will send you, Amy will send you some dates to find the best time so that we can go from there. And at the end of the meeting, I just have to remember to talk about the December meeting.
Great.
So thank you.
I'm moving us on to reports, discussions, and action items. Item A, approval of piggyback agreement between Curative Labs Incorporated and Castro Valley Unified School District for COVID-19 testing services.
Thank you. Yes, this is a piggyback agreement. Alameda County, actually, we're piggybacking off of Alameda County contract with Curative Labs, and the agreement is attached to the agenda. The agreement with the county was approved on October 7th. And with this, we are able to piggyback off of the county because we are allowed per contract California Code 10298 and 10298A and B. So just to give you some highlights on this agreement, the testing kits will be provided by the Curative Labs. Contract is for a monthly testing for our staff. Results will be received within 48 hours. And then the provider, this is a no cost to us. The provider, which is in this case Curative Labs, will be responsible for billing each employee's insurance provider directly, not through the district. They will work with the insurance company directly. This is what Ms. Amadi mentioned earlier, surveillance testing for staff. Once this agreement is approved, we have a team in place with Curative Lab for a rollout process. This will be a testing rotation. We're thinking about testing staff about 25% each week to get us to the monthly testing. Some information about the Curative Lab, just a couple of highlights here also. City of Los Angeles have been using Curative Labs since March 2020 this year, and tested over 53,000 of their residents. They acquired Corva Labs. It's a lab in San Dimas, and they're not just in California, but they also have labs in East Coast. So wanted to share that additional information. I know that Ms. Adams had shared some information earlier. So this is for your approval tonight. And so if you have any questions or comments about the agreement.
Well, I'll move approval of the contract.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Now, since this is a contract, is Shane allowed to vote? Just wanted to double check. Yes, Shane, your preferential vote?
Yes.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. We will move on to authorization to use leaseback method for various projects.
Yes, so we have with us Mr. Traber, who will share a presentation with you. If you recall, last year, back in June, you approved a leaseback construction delivery method for the Creekside Recreational Project. And tonight we are bringing this back to you for additional projects that we feel that the district would be most beneficial with this option, which is a leaseback method. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Traber.
Hi, good evening. I know that you all have had a long board meeting, and we've talked about this once before, so I'm going to try to move through this as quickly as I can. If we could go to the next slide. So back in 2019, we talked about this leaseback method pretty comprehensively. We talked about the benefits and drawbacks, and the board approved using leaseback for Creekside. If we could go to the next slide. The purpose for tonight's discussion is basically just to revisit and refresh what we talked about before. We won't go as deep into the detail as what we did before, but at the end of this item, what staff is asking the board to do is authorize using leaseback for the projects that you see listed here. So there are various modernization projects, portable replacement projects that would be, I think, as far as the law goes, those are appropriate subjects for a leaseback type of a project. If we could go to the next slide, please. So just recapping that, under California law, leaseback, it's been around since I think the 60s. And prior to 2017, we did leasebacks without a heck of a lot of structure, and we were able to do them without an RFP. A lot of districts did them in different ways that maybe weren't very competitive. There was a number of cases that were litigated, and out of that litigation sprang what was a legislative roadmap for how to procure leaseback contractors, and that's referenced there as AB 2316. The legislature also pinned some additional requirements to leaseback contracting, like using a skilled and trained workforce, which basically just means you use a certain percentage of your labor pool that needs to graduate from an accredited apprenticeship program. That percentage goes up over time. If we could go to the next slide. So this slide is just intended to summarize how this works mechanically. The district will lease the site to the contractor. The contractor immediately leases the site back to the school district while they're doing the work out there. The district doesn't go out and occupy the site generally, unless it's modernization, in which case they will put up appropriate barriers and so forth to make sure that no one is impacted by the construction. The reason it was set up this way years and years and years ago is so that it's essentially not debt. It's not like a bond for which the voters would have to have an election and approve it. It's set up so that the payments under the lease are a current expense of the district. They're not debt. It also allows the school district to finance a project through that facilities lease. A lot of times what districts will do is they will have the facilities lease extend beyond the point at which the contract is completed. So the contractor could be holding an additional sum of money that they're really owed by the district. They could be holding that debt for a year to 5 years, 10 years, however long it takes for the school district, and you can structure this however you want to. At the conclusion of the project, the leases terminate and the property and the project vest in the district. The district winds up holding title to the improvements as well as the land that was leased. If we could go to the next slide, please. So this is more detail on the roadmap. When they put AB 2316 in place, there was, I think, an underlying current that wanted more openness and transparency in contractor selection. They wanted to make sure that contractors competed for school districts' work. And so this whole process, as we will see, is set up to encourage transparency and competitive selection. The other piece that AB 2316 did is allowed a district to enter into a contract, one contract that would cover both pre-DSA approval and post-DSA approval, which we could not do prior to AB 2316. If we could go to the next slide. So these are the procedures that we have to follow for each project. And we've already done this. We've already adopted and published required procedures. That's the first step. Part of those procedures include issuing an RFP. And in that RFP, you put a price of a project, you put the description of any pre-construction services, you describe how the facilities lease is going to look. You describe how the proposals are supposed to come back and how they're going to be evaluated when contractors submit them. And then ultimately you draft and publish your RFP and the contractors can look at it. If you could go to the next slide. Just like a hard bid, the traditional bidding method, for leaseback, we publish the notice of the project in a newspaper for 2 weeks. In addition to what we do for a hard bid, we also publish it in a trade paper of general circulation. Similar to what we do with contracts over $1 million for which we would seek state reimbursement, which probably be most of them. We have to pre-qualify our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing subcontractors. We put all of that in the leaseback contract itself. And generally school districts, I know that in talking with Sharon, they already have a pre-qualification system in place. So if we could go to the next slide. This is further, I guess, along in the process of evaluating the proposals and making the contract award. So we look at the proposals the contractors give us. We score them based on the scoring criteria that's in the RFP. The RFP needs to be transparent about how we're going to evaluate the proposals. We give each contractor a score and we award the contract to the contractor with the highest score. We then identify that contractor in an open meeting. We pass a resolution essentially saying this is the contractor that we are awarding this contract to and explaining why. If we could go to the next slide. After the award is made, usually when we do leaseback, it's before you have DSA approval. So there's something that happens there that's unique and different from what you've seen in other projects. So you will see a contract for leaseback services come before you actually have finalized the plans for your project. So the reason that it happens that way is once you have your contractor involved early on like that, he will then help with it, what they call a constructability review of your plans and specifications, working with your architect and with Sharon to make sure there aren't any holes in those plans. The reason that he does that is so that you don't have change orders later on in the project. And it's so that with a leaseback contract, he's going to be able to give you what they call a guaranteed maximum price. Once you have DSA approval, you're going to finalize that guaranteed maximum price. You're going to bring it back for board approval so that you all know the scope of work, the time for completion, and the price of the project. If we could go to the next slide. So this is, again, the advantages and I guess you could say disadvantages if there are any. There's more control over contractor selection. This is probably the most important piece of this puzzle because with a hard bid, you can only consider price. And so what leaseback allows you to do is consider factors like you would if you were doing any project around your home, any private project that you would have, you would probably look at factors other than price. It allows you to look at a contractor's work history. It allows you to call references, look at their safety record, and determine whether or not they're the type of contractor that you want doing the work for you. Because the contractor is brought in early into the project before DSA approval, usually, not always, but usually, it results in a collaborative effort, much more collaborative than what you would see with a hard bid project. the contractor has an interest in doing a thorough review of those plans and specs on the front end of your project so that he can give you a guaranteed maximum price. And then once he's given you that, he's got an interest in making sure he stays under that guaranteed maximum price, because he can't ask you for more money. He can't change order the project back into profitability at that point, which is what you see a lot of times with hard bid projects. If you want to call them disadvantages to lease-leaseback, over time, historically, there have been groups of folks that don't like lease-leaseback, particularly people, disappointed contractors that don't get a lot of work. These are contractors that win hard bid work and generally don't get lease-leaseback work. And there may be reasons for some of that, but those folks sometimes are disappointed and don't like lease-leaseback. Some folks would argue that lease-leaseback results in higher prices, and certainly your guaranteed maximum price when it comes in will look higher than your bid would if you bid the project. However, your bid is never really the final price for the project. You're going to get change orders on every project. Your guaranteed maximum price, that is your price for the project. You're not going to see change orders.
Jim, just so to just ask a question. So what you're talking about, the regular type is time and materials, right? Where you can charge, and then that's usually where the contract change order takes place, because they bid one thing to get the lowest bid and then it didn't work out. So there's usually a change. So that's what we're trying to avoid with this model, is what you're saying.
Yes, essentially. So yeah, in the to illustrate it, a contractor that I've known for a lot of years and like and respect does it both ways. And he says, he's done it for 30 years. And he says, when I do a hard bid project, I'm trying to get the lowest number I can. If there's any doubt, I'm leaving any assumptions out of my bid because I want to change order the project back into profitability after I win the contract. And the lease-leaseback is kind of the opposite of that. It's more based, the selection process is going to be based more on the quality of the contractor, their reputation, their work product, and things of that nature, because at that point in time, you don't really have the ability to formulate a price. You're making a selection really more based on qualitative than quantitative factors. So yeah, you described what you described is absolutely correct. The other, I guess, disadvantage, and this probably is not a big deal in Castro Valley, some small districts have a hard time finding enough workers to meet the skilled and trained workforce requirement. They don't have enough graduates in their location, but I don't think that's going to be an issue for you all. If you could go to the next slide. So just in summary, so that you all know what to expect, your staff will, issue an RFP, probably bring it to you first to get your approval before it goes out. They'll receive the proposals, evaluate them, figure out who the best value contractor is, and then start negotiating a contract with them. At that point in time, the contract they bring to you for the first time, it's not going to be for millions of dollars. It's going to be for a pretty small amount, basically just to cover the contractor's pre-construction review of the plans and specifications. You will approve that contract. It's going to be for maybe $100,000, a couple $100,000. It's going to have everything in it that it needs in order to actually execute a construction project. But at that point, it won't have a price, a time, or a scope, because at that point in time, you don't have DSA approval. What happens after you approve it is they work through the pre-construction services, they get the DSA approval, they develop a guaranteed maximum price, and they figure out how long it's going to take to actually get it done. At that point in time, they bring back to you an amendment that says, here's the scope, the time, and the price, and you approve that amendment, and then they are off to the races, and it's pretty much on the contractor to get it done within time and within budget. That's really it. If you want to go to the next slide, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I tried to go as quickly as I could, so I apologize if I've left anything out.
Scott, you have your hand raised?
So what happens if the contractor doesn't finish on time? Or is that something that would be written into the contract?
Yeah, a good question. So it's written into the contract, and this would be true of your hard bid or your lease back. So you will write liquidated damages into your contract, and it's generally like $3,000 to $5,000 a day. If they're late, it's a big enough number so that it doesn't incentivize them to be late. There's sometimes a cost to them to get things done on an accelerated timeline, and you're trying to make those liquidated damages enough of a disincentive that they really want to get it done when they're supposed to.
I like that question because you don't want to make them go too fast and hinder safety. So the balance between safety and getting it done on time, that's reasonable. Are there any other questions? This is an action item.
Move we approve the authorization.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Shane, your preferential vote?
Yes.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Traver, for your help tonight. We appreciate it.
Have a great night.
And I did get a request to do a quick 5-minute bio/water/stretch break, just so that, you know, we've been sitting for quite a few hours by now. So we're going to take 5 minutes. So if you could be back at 8:26 p.m., that would be great. So we'll see you back in 5 minutes. Thank you. Want to make sure and check and see who's back. Sometimes it's hard to see who's on the line and who's not. I think everybody's here. There we go. Parveen, we can't hear you. You're on mute. Sorry.
I'm just going to leave myself unmuted. I'm saying I see everybody.
Okay, great. Well, we are ready to continue to our next item. Really excited about this item to see what's been going on the update on our Measure G projects.
Yes. Yes.
Hi, good evening, or good evening. So I put together a quick presentation and doing a little bit different. It's not a PowerPoint. So if we can go to the next slide. I took all the pictures that was going to show you and put it into a video. So it's an amateur video, so it's not so please excuse some of the, if something doesn't look good, it's fine. Okay, so that was my first video. Hope you enjoyed it. So our next and last part is the financial update, kind of our general spreadsheet that we show. So you look down in column A, that's our expenses to date as of September 30th. We spent about 83.1 million. We've encumbered in column B and we have encumbered another 10.7 million. C is our furniture budget. D, I did a little bit different with technology this time because before it showed technology budget, and we've pretty much have encumbered and spent all of that. So what I wanted to start to show was expenses. So this is what we spent to date on technology, just showing what we've really been putting into the infrastructure and the switches and network cables and equipment. Column E is our remaining budget scope. F is kind of our total kind of project budget, and G is our completed percentage and our remaining. So in general, we are on budget, and I think we're doing really well with the program. So any questions?
I just,
Parveen, Joe, Gary.
yeah, I'm always in awe of what they've been able to do. And I want to thank Sharon for her leadership, and Susie and their entire team. It just everything looks so nice, and I feel sad every time I go to schools and I don't see kids. But when they do come back, they're going to have really nice stuff. Even the furniture in the classroom looks nice. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed your video, Sharon, and I thought, I don't know how long ago, but recently you sent us a couple about the building of the Vanoy amphitheater, and I thought that was really interesting and a unique way to see it progress, especially in this day and age where we're not visiting schools either. So I really enjoyed it. I'm totally impressed with what you've been able to do with the bond, Sharon, and I can't tell you how exciting it is at the end of each one of your presentations to hear that we're on budget, because it's a wonderful feeling. We're doing a great deal for the schools and our community, but the fact that you're being able to stay on budget is really quite exciting. So congratulations to you and to Susie and the rest of your team.
Thank you.
Gary?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for that, because that was a different way of looking at the improvements of the various schools. Made it very interesting. And the difference is amazing, as Joe just said and Parveen said. The schools look great now. I mean, the students and staff and even parents, when they can get on campus, it'll just improve the morale of everybody to have the whole place look good, not only look good, but actually to function better, because a lot of those improvements are hidden inside the walls and you can't see them. But thanks a lot, Sharon.
Thank you.
Also, I know that this is a culmination of all the work that you have done thus far, but also recognizing all of the community outreach your team has done, which has been so much, and we're so thankful that you've shared as much as you have on a regular basis with our school community. So wanted to thank you for that as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I do have to thank my team for everything that they do, and being the boots on the ground and communicating. So it's been great.
We're hoping to get a video because since we can't have any in-person ribbon cutting right now. Hopefully we can do that in the next few months, hopefully in the future. But for now, we're hoping to get a video of these projects so we can see, like looking through. So thank you.
Monica?
I was just curious, since we've replaced the HVAC systems in most, if not all of the schools, do those systems have any kind of filters in them or purifiers, anything that would help with the parent concerns or staff concerns about the purification of the air, the ability of the virus to transmit, or air circulation? I'm not saying that very well, but you know what.
Yes. So our HVAC has standard filters in them. So, a lot of people are throwing around MERV 13s, filters. Most of the time, the standard is a MERV 8. And most of the systems are designed for that. So one of our concerns, as people talk about moving to thicker filters, is whether a system can actually accommodate it, and if it can be installed properly, you know, or on our older systems, because we went through and added air conditioning to wherever we can, but we still have systems and buildings with old AC that may not be able to take that. And what we're concerned in terms of the maintenance and operation side is our compressors locking up and freezing and not working because it's working too hard to try to push air through thicker filters. That's why we have the kind of standard filtration that is in the system. We're working and worked on like ventilation, adding additional ventilation to the system. With the HEPA air purifiers, that essentially is an equivalent to the MERV 13. So that's why there's a big push we had to purchase those units, so that it is with kind of all these different components that kind of create the additional air quality, indoor air quality kind of treatments that people are looking for. So hope that answers your question.
No, I didn't know, but I assumed that we did at least some things that would help with the ventilation to keep air circulation flowing in the classrooms. So thank you.
I also recall that Gary's report on the maintenance of those was that they've changed the maintenance protocol to change the filters more often than required in order to assist with that concern, Monica. So we're doing things on both ends.
Are there any other comments or questions for Sharon or Susie? Well, thank you so much for that Measure G update. We appreciate you joining us and everything that you've done, and we hope you have a safe and lovely night.
Oh, thank you. Have a good night. Thanks. Bye.
We'll move on to item D, approve the personnel report, and this is a revised personnel report.
I'll make a motion that we approve the personnel report as amended.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. There are no additional public comments. On to board member comments and reports. Shane, would you like to share anything else with the board tonight?
Yeah, I just have a few things. I attended the District Alliance meeting with Superintendent Amati and Vice President Lee. I have been reaching out to student school board members in the Tri-Valley and East Bay to expand the California Student Board Member Association, and I've been working with leadership in ASB to plan future events. And I also just wanted to say thank you to teachers, all of our teachers in our community, because they put their heart and soul into their job, and now that we've moved to this virtual setting, they've had to amplify that tenfold. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all of our teachers.
Thank you, Shane. I move on to Dot.
So I attended a meeting that was coordinated by the County Office of Education for School Board Trustees and the Public Health Department. And it was, I guess that was a couple weeks ago. It was very informative. It was an opportunity for trustees to ask questions of Nick Moss from the Public Health Department to clarify things that some people didn't understand, and to sort of talk about concerns such as the holidays coming up and winter and that kind of thing. So I was very grateful that the Office of Education put that together. And I hope that we have more opportunities to have that kind of dialogue with the Public Health Department. And then I went to tour from the outside, one of the learning hubs, because I can't be allowed in because that would break the protocol. But it was really great to see the kids that were there and to talk to the staff who were running the learning hub and hear about how they were given the go ahead to to design the hub, to come up with the protocols that fit in with what the public health department was requiring, but to do it in a way that served the students well and made them feel safe. So that was nice to see, and I'm going to go visit another one on Friday. So it's great to see students. I miss seeing students, and I'm glad these hubs are working. That's it for my report.
Thank you, Donna. Joe?
I also attended the ACOE meeting with Dot, and I think there were a few of us on there. I agree with you. It was really worthwhile and really pertinent information for trustees. So that was great. I mentioned earlier, Parveen and I went to the Palomar's parent meeting. I represented the board at the recent Max Selpa meeting, and I'm pleased to report that we had 4 board members there. So we had a quorum, which is a challenge sometimes. There are a couple things happened at the meeting that we should hear about. Governor Newsom's plan to give SELPAs a bump in their budget went through, and so we got a small bump. And the idea is that SELPAs across California make as much as $900 a student, where our SELPA is at $537 a student. So it's another piece of the advocation at the state level that we need to do. Our professional development was a study by West Ed on special education funding. And a couple of pieces from that is there are 725,000 students in California that are in special education. And of those, the vast majority spend 80% of their day in general ed. So one of the things we talked about at the meeting is how important that general ed teachers are given the professional development they need to work with special education students, because they're really in their classroom most of the time. So at the next Max Selpa meeting, there will be a professional development piece on what general ed teachers are learning. And then, you know, again, I know I say this every time, but it's really important that we talk to our community and our legislators about the funding for special ed. The federal government gives us 11%, the state funds 28%, and the local education agency like us puts in 61% of the cost of special education. And again, IDEA requires that the federal government provide 40% of that funding. And of course, 19% isn't even close. And just the last thing I wanted to share, and I know that we're all exhausted and COVID seems like the only thing that we can possibly do these days, but I just wanted to point out this article in our last CSBA magazine. It's called Addressing Institutional Racism as a Governance Team. And particularly tonight, since we heard from Canyon with their success on their curriculum, this article talks about what we should be doing and what we should be thinking about as a governance team to address institutional racism in our district. And like I said, I know it's hard to think about one more thing like that, but we need to do it now and continue it so that we can barricade the things that we've been doing that do have something to do with institutional racism. So that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Gary?
Okay, I was at the public health meeting also with everybody else here. I think there were, and those are interesting. It's not the only source of public health information, though, obviously, because many of the experts are all over the news and everything these days. The other things I did were not directly related, but I want to bring them up to you guys just so you'll be aware of them. Excuse me. Castro Valley Science, who sponsors the Science Olympiad and other things, last weekend had another of their lecture programs for students. This one was on life and other planets, and it featured a scientist from UC Berkeley. And I just really think that what they're doing is really terrific to bring that extra bit to our students so they can hear, and in particularly hear working scientists talk about their work and about what's going on. And I also want to bring your attention to actually sort of 3 talks that are going to happen at Rotary. Next week, November 3rd, Linda Granger, who is the superintendent of the Eden Area ROP and also a trustee of the Chabot Las Positas Community College District, is going to talk about career education, both at the high school level and at the community college level, because those are so closely linked. And in fact, our students can get college credit by attending ROP classes. The one after that is on November 10th. It's Julia Brown. She is the chair, of the National Board of Directors of the American Association of University Women. And she's going to speak on AAUW. It's a terrific organization that does a lot of work advocating for women, for women's pay and help in the workplace and so forth. So she's the chair of the national board, and that should be a very interesting talk. I will say I've known Julia for 25 years. She's one of the most fascinating women I've ever met anywhere. So I would really highly recommend that you listen to Julia's talk. Today I listened to a webinar by a Stanford professor and MD talk about sleep for students. And it was a really fascinating talk. One of the things, he said right off, students who are sleeping in on the weekends, that's an indication that they are sleep deprived. It is not a normal function. We don't skip meals during the week and load up on weekends, as he put it. So, but I will say that same guy, I've forgotten his name right now, but he will also be speaking at the Rotary Club in early January. So my final thing is I have 2 questions I'd like to ask of the board to see if there's anybody interested, as I am, in these 2 questions. The first one is, revolves around the fact that we spent a good bit of time tonight talking about when we're going to go back to in-person instruction in our classrooms. I'd like to ask when we're going to go back to in-person meetings for the school board. And I would like to suggest that we think about doing that in November or December. And I was wondering if there's anybody else who's interested in that so that we could ask Parveen to put it on as an agenda item. Yay. So there's 3. Thank you. And my second question is...
Harry, it's not that I'm not interested. I just want to safely do it. Okay. That's all.
Sorry, I spoke too soon.
Maybe even safety-wise.
Maybe even Joe's interested. I don't know, but maybe not. And we all have our different perspectives on this and our own personal concerns about it. And I understand those, and they are completely legitimate. My second question is, we've learned a lot from the pandemic. It's mostly been bad, but we've also learned some good things. And one is we've really learned how to use Zoom. I mean, in Rotary, for example, I had a speaker come from Boston University, 3,000 miles away, and she was phenomenal. So we've learned how to do that. And I would be wondering whether we want to take the knowledge that we have from our own Zoom meetings here and continue to, I'll use the term broadcast. I don't know what the right word is, but whatever the word is, to continue to Zoom our meetings, even after we go back to meeting in person. You know, back in August, we had a meeting that had, I believe,
Uh-oh, did we lose them again?
Frozen.
No, it was 850. I think that's what
holds
we're trying to
about.
say. Okay, there you go. You froze.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry.
You froze. You were just about to tell us how many people were there at our largest meeting.
Oh, 885. I hope you heard that, because that was amazing. I mean, and we had a lot of people speak, and a lot of people certainly listened. We can't do that in our own dinky little boardroom. I mean, I think it holds like what, 60 or 70. I mean, if we're disobeying the fire marshal and let people hang out the door. Even tonight, we had like 120 or 130 people on the call. So I think it would be really helpful to us. I mean, these have been very successful, and I would like for us to think about continuing to broadcast, stream, Zoom, whatever the right word is. I mean, I'm sure Greg Coe can help us with that, but that's my second question to ask you guys to consider.
Is that, yep. Who would like to do that? Interest? Okay.
Joe
So
might have a comment.
I do need to say something in response to those two. So I'll do it after all the reports are done.
Okay.
I'd like to just say that it's an issue that I'd love to see us consider and research. I have heard anecdotally horror stories about moving to television. When boards started to televise their meetings, they got really long and boards got very dramatic, and there was a lot of things like that going on. So I'd like us to do some research and talk to some boards that have navigated that.
Dot, you had your hand up?
I did. Just to say that I don't think we should let those things stop us from moving into the 21st century.
Gary, do you have any other things to update us on tonight?
No, I'm done. Thank you. Thank you for.
Sure.
How many people agreed with the second question, though, if any? Thank you.
Got a thumbs up from Shane too. Joe?
I'm sorry, I did give you guys a heads up that I did a Facebook Live with Congressman Swalwell, but I forgot to tell you, he did ask very specific questions about the school board. So I forgot to say that earlier.
Thank you, Joe. Monica?
I didn't get my hand up that fast, but I mean, it certainly seems like there's an interest, and I think that there's going to continue to be an interest in our meetings while we're dealing with this whole pandemic. So anyway, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about coming back in person, although if we're bringing students back, I guess we should, only because I have health issues that I'm not even going home to Florida at Christmas. So, but I'm certainly willing to talk about it and we can figure it out. I also attended the public health meeting. I think most of us were there, and I think she said they're going to continue to do those, which is good because it gives us more information, and I don't think we can have too much information on this. I attended the Latin American parents listening session. This was the bilingual session because Lavender and I both attended one that was the Spanish session a couple weeks ago. I also attended the African American parents listening session. And the other, I think that was Tuesday. I was at the Community Alliance on Monday, and I attended the parent leadership meeting last week. I've been kind of busy this last couple of weeks. So I think tomorrow I signed up for, there's a session on mental health for students. that I think either CSBA or AXA is doing. And that's it for me.
Thanks, Monica. I went to the Castro Valley Education Foundation meeting last week, and just to update everyone, they are opening up their innovation grant program application starting November 1st, and the grant application closes December 1st. And what this means, and I'm just going to read it off of their website so that everybody knows, but the Castro Valley Education Foundation awards grants to CVUSD teachers and other district employees, students, parents, and others for programs or projects that are especially effective in promoting academic excellence for the students of the Castro Valley Unified School District. And these grants can go up to a maximum of $1,500. So just wanted everybody to know that the application will open on the 1st and close on the 1st of December. So they will be available, and wanted to let everyone know that. And if you haven't checked out the Castro Valley Education Foundation CVEF.org website to check out what they're doing, it's a great resource. I also attended the Black African American community hearing session with Monica and Parveen last night. And I also attended the CVHS PTSA meeting with Parveen last night as well. I want to ask a question of my own. It's not a big question, but seeing tonight how we were in our meeting, who would be up for doing breaks again in the middle that are scheduled into our agenda? Okay, see a couple hands. Great. That way it's just already on the agenda, everybody knows, and we've got a break in between and people can expect it. Great. Monica?
Can I just say thank you for adding that, because we've been going at it for 5 hours, so
that's
it was a little scheduled. Just
I got a text from Dot, to be fair. She texted me, so that's Dot's idea. I just want to extend it for every meeting.
Practically begging.
Yeah. And yeah, we can include that somewhere on the, yeah, that's true. We were here for a long, long time. Two things. One, I do need to remind us that the Ed Code and our board policy actually changed recently. Thank you for Gary actually brought it to my attention. I was thinking it's the first Friday that the new board incumbents or new people take their position, but it's actually the second Friday. And our board meeting is on the 9th, which is on Thursday. So since we have one board meeting in December, we're going to need to change that. And so we have from that Friday till the 25th to have the meeting, but we have to have it either on the 11th or the 14th because we have the first interim and it has to be turned in by the 15th. So I will put this on the agenda for the next board meeting so that you can make a decision about which day, 11th or the 14th. So if you could come, 11th is on Friday, and that would be our organizational meeting. And then at that time, you can also probably talk about which board meeting, maybe in December, that you want to be in person. If we were to be in person, we would have, we would be on, we could be, and continuing on, we could actually be in person on Zoom, since we can't have too many people in the parking lot, in our wonderful boardroom. It's not a dinky little room.
You don't want to drive through board meeting?
Yeah, it's a beautiful room, but it is small. So since we can only have so many people, that board meeting could be, you have to just bring your device as if you are right now, and it would be on Zoom as we have done before. So that might actually solve the problem or what you were talking about, because it is possible as long as you stay on your computer and you're on Zoom. So we've kind of learned that. And now, are you asking for us to come back showing you what that would look like and what a streaming would look like? Because I have, my 11th year as a superintendent and my 30 some years in education. I've seen it all in that sense, in Fremont and in Pleasanton and here. And I can, you know, we can come back to you to show you what it would look like if we just stayed with Zoom like we are right now, even though you would be in person and some people would be in person. So there's some conversation to happen around that, and then we'll come back with those options for you to talk about. Okay, and I think that was the agenda item for the 9th. And then we will send you a doodle tomorrow to find the best date soon to come. I think that was it. And tonight we had about 80 some people, I think, online. So yeah, we're learning new things, new ways, better ways of doing things. I want to thank Amy before we end, because she spent tons and tons of time she spends on our agenda items and the survey. And also I want people to know that it is not easy to run a meeting with 1,000 people on Zoom or anyway. She has to be on it like every second. And I want us to be really careful about whatever we decide, because we only have so much bandwidth here as well. So thank you.
Well, with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight at the Castro Valley Unified School District Board meeting. We appreciate your time, your comments, and we wish you all a safe and good night. Thank you.